Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Love Experience and welcome to my first live, which is with my good friend, Stan the Man. And this is I Cant withSTAN.
Hey, what's up, everybody? What's up, Lola? I love what you done with the introduction.
Well, thank you. I really was inspired by what we did over the last year together. Um, with just watching movies and clips and just having fun with that. So I was really inspired because I felt that that was something we was missing on YouTube. Like just organic fun when it comes to the conversation of relationships and love. Uh, yeah, I'm really into that.
Oh yeah, I loved it too. So it was good, like looking at TV shows and seeing what it meant for all of us
Yeah.
and how it helped us in our own personal lives when we went on dating in real life. How it inspired us.
Yeah, and now keep in mind, most of what we learned, at least when I was growing up, most of what I learned about relationships, it came from television. The things I didn't know, yeah, it came from television and the different types of relationships I saw through the at least black television. I will say some of it did come from, you know, let's say other types of cinema, but the sitcoms, that's where I got the best of my childhood from. If that makes
Yes, yes,
it
yeah,
was,
I
it was
agree.
good old days, as they say back then.
Yes.
Oh man. So tonight's episode, I wanted to research, not research, but I have researched a clip that I wanted us to watch. Now, I did clean off my computer and forgot all of my information. So I have to go
Okay.
back to
Okay.
it. But it's a clip from Mauve. Was it Mauve? The television show. Um, this was like I want to say back in the 70s. Let me see. Do you remember that show? It's called Maud.
Well, it's like Maude. Right on, Maud.
Yeah, it's called Maud.
Now, for people to understand, like, look, back in the day, we didn't have cable. All the old shows was on replay on your regular TV stations, which
Yes,
was sometime only six TV stations that we had back in the day.
yes. That is the, I want to say, yeah, when I started watching Good Times, it was on replay.
Yeah,
It really
yeah.
was on replay. So I just it was it was something. But what I'll
And a
say,
lot of those shows were connected. That was so weird too. Like when you watch all these replays, you realize like all these shows were somehow spin off of another show to another show and to another show. And more importantly, they were a reflection of that time period.
hmm yeah,
It wasn't just all laughs. It was like also like what was going on socially.
that is true. That is true. I want to say, and that's what this tonight is about. Watching a clip from 1973. Let me see. 'Cause I want to see. Here it is. Okay, so let me see. Uh, all right. So I'm pulling it up now. Yeah, I'm pulling it up now, and what I'll do is I'll let me go all the way down here because I have to stick to the YouTube rules
Okay.
and all of that. But yes, this is a clip from that television show where they combine forces in a sense with John Amos and the Esther Roll, and they were
Okay.
actually still James and Florida on the show. So, like you said, when they did the crossover shows, I really enjoyed that. But this is This was one for the ages right here. Let me see. Yeah, I think I gotta get it from from Amazon.
Uh-oh.
They was the only ones trying to sell it to me, and I was like, "Come on now, like let's not do this." Okay, so what I'm gonna do right is I'm gonna share my screen, and I'm gonna put everything up or whatever, and we're gonna just watch the version. Yeah, we're just gonna watch it and just see how it plays out. Um, Let me see. Okay, so all right. So I'm gonna cut the music, and what I'm gonna do now is just start playing that. Play that back. Let me see. Pause that. And what we're gonna do is watch part of an episode because I'm not gonna hold you guys here all night. And we're gonna watch part of this episode from Maud and from 1973, and we're gonna talk about marriage and Black marriage and the reality of it after we watch this. So let me. Present my screen, but let me take it back to the beginning here, because you're gonna see two scenes actually. You know what? We'll see it. Because there's a lot of racism in here. I'm gonna be honest with you. It's a lot of racism here. It was so much, Stan, that even I was like, "How did that get put on television?"
I think that was the thing about Mod. It was that it was so much stuff going on Mod, especially that here's a woman who in her second marriage with a child, like grandchildren. Her daughter is not married.
Right.
She's a single mom,
Right.
Raising a boy, and there was so much stuff happening. I think like the late '60s and '70s that they just had to keep it. We want to say keep it real.
Yeah.
Got to keep it real.
Let me see. Window. Yeah, I'm gonna share this one. Okay. So all right. So this isn't the beginning of the episode, but Dorothy from Golden Girls was actually the main character here. And sorry if this is like a movie review, but this is what we do here. Because I can't. All right, so we're gonna watch this, and let me before I do anything, let me throw up my fair use sign over top of this. Okay, now hope you like it, Stan. Can't stand everywhere. All right, so we're gonna start watching, and Stan, let me know if you can hear the audio, because my first time. Gotta make sure. All right, so I'm just gonna start here.
Threat of violence? Oh no, Florida. That's right, and I ain't never hit him before.
Can you hear it?
I heard it, like when she said threat of violence or something like that.
Yeah. Okay, so let me take it back just a few seconds. Okay. All right, I'm gonna stop it. We're gonna watch it here, and then we'll go on. All right.
Older and out of the house. That's when I'll be able to quit. But my Henry, he just won't wait. We argued so bad this morning, there was even the threat of violence. Oh, no, Florida. That's right, and I ain't never hit him before. I'll get them. You stay and finish your cry. It'll do you good. I'm Henry Evans. Come in, Mr. Evans. You're Florida's husband.
Well, that's one way of putting it, but the other way, which is the right way, is that Florida's my wife. Hey, I ain't got but a few minutes on here to pick up.
Pick her up, but Florida isn't going anywhere, Mr. Evans.
Oh, I'll be the judge of that, Mrs. Finley.
Henry Evans!
Yeah, that's right. Just like I was telling Mrs. Finley, here comes the judge. Now get your things. I'm taking you home.
The hell you say?
Now, don't give me no lip, woman. I got the taxi parked outside. I'm going to drive you home right now, so let's go.
Look, Mr. Evans, Florida, why don't I leave and just let the two of you iron things out?
Oh, she's not going to be doing no more ironing, Mrs. Finley. Unless it's for her own family. No more ironing for white folks.
Mr. Evans, I'll have you know that under this roof, we are all human beings. There is no white and no black. We are all the same. Here we are, people color.
You didn't tell me you was working for a comedian.
You have no call to talk to her that way. If you want to abuse a woman, you might as well stick with me. You already put in 22 years at it.
See, you've been working for Miss Ann too long. Where you get off using words like abuse? If you want to tell me I'm hassling you, just come right on up front and say so.
All right, man, you're hassling me.
Don't you open your mouth to me like that. Your career is made its own path
For 2 more years, Henry, and that's that.
That's that is. Well, I can't pick you up and drag you out of here. So I tell you what, I'm gonna make you a sporting proposition. I'm holding one match in this hand here, right?
Oh, no, you don't, Henry Evans. I'm not going to play any of your little games with you. You trick me that way. You always trick me.
Now, this is no trick, Flora. I'm holding one match in my hand, ain't it?
Henry.
Ain't this just one match here? You see it's one match, isn't it?
Yeah.
All right, now I'll tell you what. I'm going to take it and put it behind my back and bring it back real fast. There. How many matches you see now?
1.
Uh-huh. Now there's 2.
There ain't but 1 match there, Henry.
But I say there's 2. Now, will you go home with me if I'm right?
Henry, you're tricking me.
Baby, how can I trick you? You say there's 1 match. You see it with your own eyes, but I say there's 2. Now, will you go home with me if I'm right?
No, you're tricking me.
Well, will you go home with me if I'm wrong?
Yeah.
And get your things, I'm wrong.
Mr. Evans, Florida, please.
I just want you to know that there is absolutely no reason to be uncomfortable about fighting in this house. True love grows best in the soil of emotions passionately expressed.
You save that jive talk for the cotton field, Mrs. Fenley. Now, Florida, now hear this. I'm pressed for time now, but when my shift is over tonight, I'm coming back and take you home for good. You hear me? Once and for all, I'm taking you home for good. Now, that's that, over and out.
Wait a minute, Henry.
No, that's that now, over and out. I'm coming back at 9 o'clock, and I mean 9 o'clock WPT.
Florida, what's WPT?
White people time. If he didn't mean 9 o'clock sharp, he would have said CPT, that's colored people time. Which means, shuffle on in when you feel like it.
All the male chauvinist pigs. I mean, he's something straight out of the Dark Ages. Nothing racial intended. Look, honey, before you go to work, I know that you're doing inventory this week, but it's very important that you be home no later than 9 o'clock. Florida's husband wants her to quit her job, and she doesn't want to do it. Honey, he's coming by at 9 o'clock to pick her up and take her home. Please be here. You know, maybe another man can talk some sense in.
Another man is right. I wouldn't touch this with a 10-foot pole. Now, look, Maud, I'm sure that Florida understands. We have no right to interfere in her marriage.
And I have no time for any of this jive talk. Now, Florida and I need your help. So you be back, Walter, at 9 o'clock sharp. And I mean WPT.
Florida, what the devil is she talking about?
I think she's turning black by osmosis.
Now look, Maud, if Mr. Evans wants his wife home, that's his right. We're not going to get involved. I absolutely forbid it.
You absolutely forbid it.
You heard me? Let's stay out of this. And that's that. Over and out.
Welcome to the Dark Ages, Mrs. Finley. Nothing racial intended by that.
Okay, Stan. Okay, so that's half of this the scene with Florida Evans and John Amos. That's half of the scene. So okay, I will allow you to go first, Stan. In terms of what are your thoughts? It doesn't matter. What are your thoughts in terms of marriage, traditional marriage? Because they did have a traditional family structure for what we interpret that as.
No, I completely understand from that time period where it's like Black people now can get other jobs besides being maids.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when you looked at that time period, people were doing work for. Now, look, we're going to age ourselves here. So before there was cell phones, guys, there were landlines. And you need actual human beings to call and to plug you in. You have to call an operator if you don't know the number. They'll like even give you the address and everything. So you actually need human beings to go to work, working for for phone company. So there was no cell phones, and you had to be home to answer your phone. So there were jobs like that. Men did more like the garbage men, working in a hotel. So there were jobs around, but not to work for, like, say, to be a maid. And by then it was like, hey, you have options. That's what. Well, on this one he's called Henry, but later we'll know him as James.
Right. Most people know him. Actually, I know every time I see him, I say, "Look at James."
Yeah, because they're like Henry. I'm like, who's Henry? But
That's what I said. Why they calling him Henry? But okay, whatever. Oh, maybe was Henry part of his original name in Good Times? Like, it was that like his his government name or something like that?
Maybe it could be it, but even then she always called him James, like James. Like that was it. But like this one, she said Henry. So I'm like, okay.
So they're not fronting for white people, basically.
Yeah. And also for him to, and also for, like, you see the husband is like, mind your business. And then I think this also at the same time, the feminist movement was always introduced to Black women anyway, when I look at the Raising the Sun. Because that was something that was going on, Raising the Sun. I don't know how old Raising the Sun was, but that's also in black and white. Okay, now again, we're going to date ourselves here. Anything we consider black and white TV was what, 1940s, 1960s?
It was.
All right, so we were like, so I'm going to say Raising the Sun was more like the 60s, because it's like, crispy and clear. So that was the introduction of feminism into a Black household when she said there is no God and everything else. So I digress from that. But here, I think this is more the 70s, late 60s, because of color. So you're looking into that with both families. The men are, there's something with the men, they understand that they're just men. Yes, there's racism here, but there's a code, like mind your business. What goes on in our marriages, goes on our marriages.
Right.
That's it.
Now, I would say I wouldn't even consider that. At that time, I don't see where people consider that quote unquote traditional. Like you said, that's just code for when you're in a marriage or a relationship that is between you guys. And it's like an unwritten rule that you do not, allow other people to come into your relationship via your own mouth, basically. So I don't see them treating that as tradition, more so as much as I see them treating it as this is just a part of our culture, period.
But I think like now, I think you consider that tradition because now everybody is like in your business.
Well, yeah, true. Yeah, now you can say it. Well, with authority, you can now categorize it as traditional because of where we are in terms of the foolery. I'll say that. But generally speaking, this is code. This is just culture. This is just the way we view the world is when it's us, we deal with us in our house. When it's us outside, we deal with us against the world. It is not us in our house, outside on the front, in the world looking and all of that. It's not that. Now, I'll be honest with you, the scene where they were yelling or raising their voice was interesting because keep in mind, this is the 1973 when this aired. And of course, this was recorded back in the late 60s before it aired. So they had been married, according to this, if you put their children somewhere around 18, 20, roughly 2 decades they've been in a relationship. So they came, roughly, we're looking at 1950s in terms of their marriage, right? Because if they're 20 years married in 1970, okay, roughly. They've been married since the 50s. So they are immersed in the culture of marriage, right? So even back from the 1950s, what these individuals, when they were married in the 50s, they wasn't born in the 50s, they were married in the 50s.
Yeah.
The culture, or let's say tradition to them, did not involve, well, because we're a couple, you shut up and I talk because I'm a man, or you shut up and I talk because I'm a woman. Now, I did see that slight difference in the white couple, and I've seen that all the way into the 90s, where the white man is portrayed as the breadwinner and the leader of the house, but the woman is the one that actually moves everything, and he bends her will. I've seen that on the white side a lot, and it's weird. I can't say I understand it from a cinema point of view, but on the black side specifically, as far as traditional marriage is concerned, I noticed that there didn't seem to be no hard, agenda to push people towards, making sure they're acting like, they're in a marriage because we're trying to keep tradition. That wasn't the agenda on television back then. People were just being organically who they were in their relationships. And it was very clear that between black relationships, as far as marriage is concerned, because that's all that you would see on television, is black women and black men relate to each other differently, and they relate to each other in a more organic way, meaning recognizing each other for what they are in that relationship, not so much just what they do and they rank. So that's the difference I've seen between the two couples here. But generally speaking, in terms of the 70s, the early 70s, late 60s television era, where most people tend to think this is the more traditional era when women were, wore the knee-length skirts, and, there was all the women had real hair, and everything was just all peachy and fine.
Peachy and fine for who?
Right. Now, keep in mind, this is the crux of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's the breadwinner, but she's working. And she's not working because she just wants to work. And I think we fail as a people to see, because this is part of that ugly truth. I think we fail to see that as much as the culture of a woman staying home and the man going out and getting the as they say, getting the bacon, bringing home the bacon, was a part of, that was an American staple, probably, rather. Here in America, that was never our culture. From Plymouth Rock to Reconstruction to Desert Storm, that's never been our experience. Meaning, only the upper echelon of people, black people, married, could afford to even do that. And even then, if you have a guy who, let's say he's a millionaire, right, and he has a wife, if he's making all the millions, let's say something happens to him, based on the laws, based on some of those unwritten racial laws, they could lose everything if he dies. So she had to be just as poignant when it comes to finances and business as he was. We've, at least in my estimation, from all of the cinema I have watched and all of the stories that have been passed down to me from my family, or in my family, and from my family, our people have always had to maintain two hands at each end of the jump rope. Like, it can't be one. It has to be two, because without two, something's fitting to happen to bring it all, crashing down. And I feel that in this scene, we see a man that is clearly, he's set in his ways, and he's very much the leader of his household, but he recognizes that he don't have so much power over his wife, and he has to garner her goodwill like he would anybody else, rightfully so. Now, granted, when it first came on and he was talking about this, my wife, I'm not her husband, she my wife, I think that was him fooling around and just kind of being cocky a little bit. But when he did the match trick with her, I feel that was a juxtaposition of how he can portray himself as the bulldog and then turn around and portray himself as the teddy bear and say, hey, please come home.
But that's the whole thing of being the man. Like, you do all of it. We're all of it. You have to be a warrior. Yeah. At the same time, you got to be a lover. You do all of it. You don't stay at one frame. It doesn't work. Like when you're intimate with a woman, she see all of it. She doesn't just see one sided.
Yeah.
I just want to tell it to the ladies out there, like you get all of it.
Yes, we do. And here's the thing. Okay, if you're a one night stand, like tonight, a one night stand, you probably won't see the guy in all sides of his face. But if you are someone that is intimate with him on more than one level, yes, you will see him at his best when he's confident, at his lowest when he's doubting himself. You will see him in different lights, and you'll see him upset. You'll see him happy, as we seen with James. He come in the door happy. He leave out shutting it, talking about some WPT, white people time. Like explain to me how that's a punishment. He's like, I'm coming back here. If you ain't here at white people time, what's fitting to happen? Like,
but that right there is cold. Like I'm gonna be here on time. Like don't do no C. We all know CP time. Like come to the party at 7. We all coming at 11 o'clock.
oh
Where's
my
the food?
God. Oh, he said 11. Oh my God, Stan.
But we know color people time. We know CP time. It's like, man, we going to bed. Like, what are you talking about? Like, there was a dinner party from 7 to 9. No, 7 to 8. Or, whatever. Like, people coming at 11 o'clock. What a party at? What a party at? Like, oh,
right.
what? You can't do this, not in this neighborhood.
Yeah, not here. Not yet. Well, in most neighborhoods, you couldn't do it there. Not in most. Yeah, I will say that. Not in most. But
yes.
you know what? Before we play the second half, I want to say that. Did you notice? Essentially, there's a undertone in their argument, right? Because he said in the beginning, not in the very beginning, but he said that basically he articulated that he doesn't want his wife doing the work that she's doing. Not so much he doesn't want her living her best life and chasing her passion. He didn't say that. He said, I don't want my wife basically working for white people. You understand?
Yeah, and that's why I mentioned at the first part, like, yeah, you had options not to work. Now, this is what people need to go back to this history of where they actually sought out black women, no matter what skin tone they were, to work for white women. Mm-hmm. And this is time period they grew up in. So this is something like their time period. They didn't want to see their mothers, working for white women because, they will not be home until late at night. They leave early in the morning, and lucky you left with your grandmother or auntie or someone to stay at home.
Right.
And then imagine they grew up like this, and then now you see your wife doing something that your mom did, and none of you guys liked it.
Right. And two, it was a status issue as well, because I agree that even back then, black men look at white men in terms of marriage and say, hey, I want that. I want to, as James you'll see in the second half, I want to provide for my woman, and I don't want her having to scrape to essentially help me. I don't want that. But that's what married women had to do. So when we hear conversation today about, well, women stayed home, I always say, in what world or what earth? Because there's Earth 1 through 1 billion. Like, this is Earth 1.
Earth Prime.
5, Earth 10, 12, and 27. I think 27 is a popular one for some reason. Or 26, 1 and 2. But like, what earth are you on? Because you can't show me one instance in history, whether we talking about cinema or actual like documentary style, like, you can't show me nothing in history where it shows black women not working right alongside their men and their marriages being befitted to that sort of structure. And I want to be clear that your marriage can fit around any ideology you wanted to fit around, right? So for instance, with the white couple, their marriage was suited around the woman, Dorothy. I keep calling her Dorothy, but Dorothy. Ahmad is centered around Maud's culture of staying at home. That's what their marriage is centered around. Like she said, I need you home at this time. I'm doing this. We're having this. And everything is centered around her being a homemaker. However,
but Flora doing all this stuff. Like, how is she a homemaker She has a maid. It's almost like the Brady Bunch. Like Alice was the maid. I'm like, okay, what purpose?
Are you staying home if you have a maid? But that's how their marriages. I know I get what you're saying, but that is how their marriages were situated. But with the black community, you could never find a man whose marriage is situated around his wife staying home and being a homemaker, but then he has to
Hasn't.
hire a homemaker because
Oh yeah, we do. Remember the Jeffersons?
no, because George did that to keep up with his white counterparts. He didn't do that because she wasn't a homemaker. He did that because he said, now that we up here, basically we're gonna live like the white people. And the white
Now
people,
Louise was a maid, and it was so hilarious. You know, I want to say this. I want to say this real quick. When I had moved out my last apartment, right, and I was going to have a maid clean up after me. Now you know how we are as black people.
okay.
You know, I cleaned first before they came in.
Oh, see.
Because I'm not going to have nobody talk about me, you know, like this black person come up in here, dirty house. You know, I clean up as best as I can because we black. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. I don't want to have that look.
Well, you know what? I'm not even gonna front. I do feel the same way. If somebody was coming to my house, because I've considered having the Spanish girls come and just do my floors, because I have a like 2,300 square feet house, and it's a lot of hardwood floors in here. And trying to keep that clean and stuff, that's a lot. I was gonna have them come in once a month and clean, but I said I don't want them coming in my house and my floors is like dirty, like you know, like dirty. Or my house is dirty, right? But they the maids. So, you know, I mean, but that just goes to show to a degree in our culture, we don't feel as comfortable doing that because of how hard we work just in general and just our own comfortability with someone else in our space doing that. Like,
Yeah.
We just don't. And I do believe that, and I mean, that's if you watch the, you know, Good Times to see how Florida was a homemaker at some point where she was in between jobs. Like they did show that she wasn't always working. James
And
was
neither was
always
James. And neither was James.
he wasn't always working. She wasn't always working, but that's the difference. She never hired a maid. She would always be the homemaker, but that to me is a cultural institution that black marriages have always been situated around. Meaning the woman, if she's a homemaker and she's married and she's working, their marriage is constructed around that. Meaning her working is not a sign that he's not the man, right? And
Yes.
him working and paying the bills, or let's say not working, is not a sign of her dominance over him because her job is still going on. That's not what that is, because their marriages was based on the understanding that we are all we got. Period. It's not.
Can you say? Well, can we also say that it was built on survival?
Yes, this is all we got, and this is what we have to survive. So because of that, well, I'll work, you work. When you not working, I do double work. When I'm not working, you do double work, and we both be working because we can only survive if we are doing this. We can't survive if I'm doing this. We can't survive if you're doing this. And to me, that's not tradition. That is, like you said, survival. Survival is based on what's in front of you, not necessarily the culture of what's right. It's not. It's what's in front of you. For instance, with Spanish people, they always get the stigma of living together, right? But in reality, what's in front of them? Not having a lot of money, spending most of their money, sending it back home because they got to take care of family that can't take care of themselves in their other country, which chops down their income for now. So they have to do what they have to do to survive. It's not a matter of, well, we're traditional people. It's not that.
No.
This is what we have to do.
Can I also add on to, you mentioned something about living your purpose and working. And I want people to understand the time frame where we're in. Mm-hmm. You are not going to sit down and capture butterflies and study grass for $100,000 a year. This is not that time period. Like we have I forget I forget they call it something where we take where we are in the present and shame people for where we are in the past without understanding how things were in the past. Like this is a time period where people had to find jobs to live,
Yes.
and that's it. Like your job, there was no liberal arts studies. You went to school with a purpose of finding a job. That was the only reason you went to school was to get a job, not to go to school and stay there like Lynn on Girlfriends with 8 degrees. It doesn't work. you know, you went to school to get a job, a good job, and that was it. And also, some people went to school to get married, and that was it. That's the only reason you went to college was
Yeah.
for that. You didn't go to college to find fulfillment
No.
and to live out your purpose, and that didn't work. And also that thing that she did too when she told him that he had permission to argue in the house and it's okay for him to yell. Although it sounded like they were yelling before, I have to keep in mind you, they were doing these things live, so they are like theatric actors. Remember,
Improv.
they had to project.
Yes.
So a
Improv.
lot of times people like feel like they had to turn down the volume. I'm like, yeah, this back then they didn't have digital. They had to, film was expensive. They had to practice. They had to project, and it
Right.
was shot in front of a live audience. So it was like a play.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. And I forget about that. And they do, that is part of the caption. This was recorded in front of a live TV audience. I remember
Yes,
that.
yes. So they were theatrical actors. So it's not like what we have now, where somebody roll out of bed and decide they go on IG or TikTok, and like today I'm going to be an actor, and we got all these
Yeah.
tools. Like these people had to study their craft. Like this
Yeah.
was bread and butter. You had to act, and it's like, yeah, they're real actors. This is a time period where these people had to perform for a living.
Oh yeah. But keep in mind too, I mean, I think even though we're speaking of in terms of cinema,
Mhm.
black people in general like to perform because when you watch movies about this time period, the late 60s, right? Or
Yes.
earlier, most actually I haven't seen too many movies where women wasn't a maids or wash hands, meaning because there wasn't washing machines, jobs for washing clothes was very big, especially after Reconstruction. So the thing about it is, as a community, right, everybody had to pull their weight, including the children. Now that's something we don't talk about, that it wasn't just wife and husband working, it was wife, husband, children working. That's what we don't talk
Hmm.
about. It wasn't just that. Everybody had to pull their weight. And so the idea that the black marriage after slavery was something traditional equivalent to white marriages based on the white construction, in terms of the woman stay home, she be quiet, she doesn't do anything but lay down on her back and have children while the man goes out and does whatever, like that right there has never been our culture. Sure, a few people have entertained that, but that's never been our culture in any large degree.
Yeah.
So this is part of that ugly truth, that as much as we want to as much as we may want to be like white people.
But
um
you couldn't, because I'll say this real quick, because of Maud, right?
mm-hmm,
Maud is part of that culture, and Maud and her daughter were totally against it.
mm-hmm,
That was the whole thing about Maud that was so different. And it was also weird too, because they're living next door, or they knew Archie Bunker, which
mm-hmm.
was like, you know, his wife was a stay-at-home wife, and he saw his daughter fighting against it. So white women had their own things that was going on too. So for them, they didn't want to sit down and give birth to 15 kids. Nobody was staying no farm. Like keep in
Right.
mind when you had all those children, that was a farm. Like kids work, and you
Mm-hmm.
had to go to school, and
Right.
you came back home and work and cook and clean.
That is true. That is so true. And that's something that my mother told me about when they were young. how they would have to contribute to the family, even though my grandmother, for instance, was in school for nursing. But my grandfather had his own TV fix-it shop, like a fix-it shop, and they were both working though. She was a nurse. He worked. He had a trucking business at some point, but there was never a time where my grandparents and my great grandparents were never working, like never.
No, you
And
work. Everybody works.
everybody worked. Like even when I look at pictures, it's like I see my grandmother, my great grandmother. She was a wet nurse, and my grandfather, he was cutting grass. I mean, on my other side, he driving trucks. She's in nursing, like or she was working at a laundry mat or something like that. But it was both of them working. So
Yes.
and that's the thing nowadays. Women and men seem to want to use their jobs as leverage, and in this, it honestly is sad that we're not at a place where we can see that we're still in the same place we were back in the late 60s, where we still need each other in that physical financial way. And it's not a matter of status. Just because your wife works does not mean that you have a lower status as a man. This is our culture. Everybody in the community works, period. That's our culture.
Now, I will say it did become a thing. We'll come back to it. Remind me to come back to this. Write it down in a notebook. In the late 80s and 90s, it became something else where it was single moms versus married moms versus divorced moms.
Mm-hmm.
And it was something else where women working was a status symbol.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't know if you remember. Well, we'll come back to it. We'll
Well,
come back to it.
yeah. If you it shifted over time. It did shift. Where it did shift. But I'll say for this, the way it was, at least in this scene, if let's say she wanted to open her own dress shop, I don't believe that he would be in there saying, "You coming home with me at 9 o'clock, white people time, because I don't got time to be married to no woman with her own shop." Like, I don't believe that would have been the attitude. I think the attitude
No.
had a lot to do with the racism that the cultural inset racism of black women having to work for white women because they're black, and their husbands having to endure more racism than what the women did, and that was an issue too. Um, you
And look
know,
what time he's gonna pick her up. He's like after he's done, 9 p.m. Right, right then there.
right,
Like, can you think about it? Like, you go
right,
to work in the morning because we've gotten, we're working 9 to 5. Again, that comes from Dolly Parton, Working
mm,
Woman show from the 80s. We have to look back on that one. Working 9 to 5, but they work from 8 to 8. Like you're doing 16, 12-hour shifts. And for Flo to be at a house until 9 p.m., I'm like, what kind of thing were you doing to her house? Like, Maud was a stay-at-home wife. Like, what in the world are you doing every day to 9 p.m.? And it goes right back to, I'm sure enough, their time period, they grew up like that, where that was normal for their moms to be out the house working for a white woman. And that's something he probably did not like because he want his wife to be home with the kids and not to be far away from home until 9. And at that time period, it was not safe for black people to be outside that late in a white neighborhood. And we have to keep that in mind too. We have to be sensitive to that. That was something that he has to worry and be concerned about as a husband. A lot of stuff took place late at night, and black women didn't have rights when stuff happened to them in a white neighborhood. It wasn't safe.
that's true too, and that's one of those nuanced things that if you don't pay attention to it, you'll miss that. And you'll see as the episode goes on about how he has a problem. He doesn't have a problem with her getting off at 9 because he knows that that's the general culture. But look at a wife getting off from a maid's job at 9. She's been there all day. Like this episode started early in the morning, and then it goes to 9 o'clock at night, and she's working 5 days a week, 6 days a week, sun up to sundown, and this is what they need to survive. It's like Black marriage was not about keeping up essentially with something that wasn't in front of them. They knew that they didn't have the type of structure where they could entertain the same level of relationships and marriages as their white counterparts. And that, I mean, honestly, I can respect it, but that just goes to the point that marriage is about what's in front of you, not what you want it to be based on what you think others are doing, because culturally we're different. And that difference plays out in how our relationships are structured. So whereas white people have never really had to have a conversation globally about how women working does not dictate, let's say, rank in a personal relationship, in an intimate relationship, ours have been very different in that same way. So, I mean, I would say part of the ugly truth is that, as much as we think women staying home and resting in their femininity is something we could even entertain or even need to even today, is a flawed idea. It just is. There is no such thing as resting in your femininity and not being a part of the community and not pulling your weight and not working. I know some people say, well, you have to work from home. Here's the thing. Everyone don't have that ability to work from home, but it's still the culture that women work. And it's not about, well, the husband's status. It's not about poor. That's our culture. And I think a lot of times when people say, African Americans or Africans in the diaspora don't really have culture, right? Like we just all over the place. That's not true. We do have a culture. It's based around our experience here in America. And so, I just found that to be interesting. But the second part is real interesting. But hold on, let me see something here, because I lost my let me see, Amazon. I lost my other screen real quick. I wanted to go back. Let me see. Where is my movie? Okay, let me put it in here
Okay.
again. Okay, because I is like, okay, like this thing always gotta do me like that. Like, why you gotta do me like that? Hold on. It was what? Okay, because I had ordered it, and that's what we was watching from Mod Prime. Okay, so let me see
Okay.
something. No, season one. Continue watching. Let me see. All right, hold on one sec. Okay, so I'm gonna put up my disclaimer stuff just so I can, protect myself from, the wolves. Okay, so Stan, you there? Can you hear it, Stan?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, so I'm getting ready to start playing the other half of it. Oh God, I feel bad. It's gonna get bad. Okay, here we go.
Harold, Joe Namath.
Mother, it's Bob Reed.
Joe Namath. I tell you both, we're Morris. Harold, listen to me. Now, I have watched every single pro football game on TV all year, so I'm an authority. And I know that Joe Namath, without a shadow of a doubt, has a cuter rear end than either Bob Reed. Enough of that. Here's to our Emancipation Proclamation. I mean, a Womancipation Proclamation. To our Womancipation Proclamation. Florida and I are finally getting out from under the yoke of male domination.
Yeah, but I'm also under the yoke of white racism. That makes me have a double yoke. Florida, you having a hot time on the old Tom tonight.
Listen, you two. This thing about male domination, it isn't only the man's fault. We win and bring it on ourselves.
Oh, come on, honey. That's because we're told right off the bat that we're second class. I mean, when does a new father hand out cigars? When he has a boy.
That's right. And did you ever see a girl join her father in business? You never heard tell of Sanford and daughter. Son.
Porter, when did you start smoking?
Well, it all began this morning, Carol. My husband started and her husband finished it. You know, men are no damn good.
It's probably a bad seed. You know, the same gene that gives them those little bald spots on the back of their head. Which is Mother Nature's way of getting even. Mother Nature, thank heaven she's a woman. That's probably my bald spot now.
You two, Florida, I've got a date. But we'll keep the car radio tuned in to police calls.
Well, hi, love. Well, we just finished the old inventory. Your lips feel like thin slices of day-old liver.
I'm sorry about that, Walter. Because day-old liver lips are too good for you.
I suppose all this has something to do with our talk this morning?
Talk? What talk? I don't remember any talk, Walter. All I remember are orders. I absolutely forbid it. That's that. Over and out. Do you remember those words, Walter? Well, so you never forget them. I am going to have them hand-painted on your next Christmas tie, which I shall probably be sending from an adorable little tie shop in Reno. I have a charge there.
Lord, I had to stop you from getting between Florida and her husband. I was merely trying to protect you from yourself.
Thank you, Napoleon. Now look, Florida is my friend. I will deal with her in my own way, and if I make a mistake, it will be my own mistake. And I do not want you, Walter, under the benevolent guise of protection, to prevent me from making that mistake. Now, Florida is going to stay here until she solves her problem with her husband. Is that clear?
Oh, yes, I understand. You're going to make a fool of yourself, and there's nothing I can do about it. Now, what's for dinner?
Now, Walter. I'm now going to show you the difference between us. What's for dinner, you snarl? And your little forked tongue darts out of your little hairy mouth. Like a garter snip. But because I am a woman, Walter, without rancor, I am offering you a choice for dinner. Chicken or roast beef?
Chicken or roast beef? That's nice. I think I'll have the chicken.
Sweetheart, while I'm preparing dinner, why don't you finish making your martini and just relax?
Well, one for our side.
Here's your dinner, darling.
Huh? That's a TV dinner and the chicken is still frozen.
Walter, if you think that's a frozen chicken, wait till you see what you find in bed tonight.
Over and out, Walter. Over and out. You too?
I'm not going to inhale. It's not worth it.
WPT, that's it.
You gonna go out there?
Yeah. But I'm going out CPT.
I'm Henry Evans. I'm Walter Finley. Come in.
Where's Florida?
She's in the kitchen, but I think you ought to know she decided to stay over tonight.
Oh, not if I have anything to say about it. You mind if I talk to him?
Of course not.
Good.
Well, Mr. Evans, what a pleasant surprise. You called?
Where's Florida?
Well, the last I saw of her, she had resorted to smoking because of you. She was puffing on a cigarette.
A cigarette?
Well, tell her to drag her butt out here.
Gutter humor titillates you, doesn't it? Mr. Evans, you stay here with Balzac while I convey the message. I'll explain the whole thing to her, and then she'll probably change her mind. I've just spoken to Mrs. Evans, and she wishes me to convey the message to you that at this particular moment she does not care to converse with you. She requests instead that you bug off.
Well, Mrs. Evans said that, didn't she? Well, I'm not leaving here until I talk to her.
But I told you before that if he wants his wife home with him, that's his business. Now look, I'm not asking you to get out of their lives any longer. I am demanding it.
Walter, the last king in this country was Kong. And he was shot off the Empire State Building for being less of a drag than you are right now. He was also a lot more attractive.
All right, Henry. I'm going to give you 2 minutes to say I'm sorry and go home.
But when I go home, you going with me?
And I'm not coming home until you say out loud right here and right now that I'm keeping my job for 2 more years.
Tell her, Mr. Evans.
More, stay out of it.
Florida, I got a good mind to go right upside your head. Now get your coat, come on.
What makes you think you can order me around like that, Henry?
You my wife, that gives me the right.
When he says wife, he means possession. So what, Maud? You told me 100 times you want to feel possessed.
Walter Finley, I never said that standing up, and you know it.
People are not supposed to be possessions, Henry Evans. Now, if you want me, you're going to have to take me as your equal.
Lord, I never said nothing about you not being my equal. Why you want to run all this civil rights jazz on me?
This ain't civil rights, Henry. It's woman's rights.
Woman's rights. Boy, don't nobody ever want to talk about men's rights.
Out of sight, Henry. Let's talk about it right now.
Right on.
Isn't that adorable? They found each other.
Yeah, 2 peas in a pod. One of them black-eyed.
I'll tell you something, Henry. There's only one way to end this argument. Florida, don't take this personally, but you're fired.
Fired?
Man, you hear that? Man, you are something else. All right, Florida, get your coat. Come on now, let's go.
Don't listen to him. You are rehired with a raise.
I'm not firing you again.
Wait, get your coat, Florida.
You're rehired, Florida.
Damn it, Florida, you're too slow.
All right.
You are hired.
The unemployment service ain't going to believe this.
If he's fired, Walter, you might just as well fire me as your wife.
You hear that, Henry? We're busting up their marriage, and it's all your fault.
All my fault. You hear that, Walter? All I'm trying to do is get the same things for my wife that your wife has, and she's complaining.
I got news for you, Henry. When your wife has everything my wife has, she'll still complain.
All women, I tell you, I don't understand it. But especially you white women. You sit up here in your nice world, and instead of enjoying the things you got, you're wearing yourself sick about some women's rights. Well, let me tell you, baby, I'm ebony. In the world I grew up in, the black man couldn't even get a job. So the woman went out and worked and supported the family. And quiet as it's kept, none of us never wanted it that way. And some of us don't have to have it that way, like me. Now, I got a job and a good one. And if I have to work 2 jobs, then I will. Because I'm no longer going to be the husband of a black maid.
Hey, you people ain't gonna be sucked in by that jive.
Yeah, he knows what he's talking about. He's black.
And what do you think I am, Sundance? You ain't listening to a black problem woman. You listening to a male ego.
Oh, now, wait a minute, Florida.
Oh, Henry, you wait a minute. Now, you hurt because of your pride, and I love you for that. But I also resent you for not being just as proud of me as I am of you.
I am proud of you, Florida. It's just that I don't want you to be a maid no more.
Them two don't go together, Henry. Your mother was a maid. That's how your brothers got through school and you got to be a fireman. My grandmother was a maid. That's how my daddy got a new schooling. There are a lot of women, Henry, on both sides of my family who worked all their lives in white kitchens so their kids could get some of the things they should have. You want to be proud of something, Henry? You be proud of them, because they was all black women. And I tell you, there ain't never been a better woman than that. going home now, Miss Finley. I'll see you in the morning. Right, Henry? Tell you what, so that I don't have to make this decision by myself, I'm gonna pull up this match. How many of you see here? One,
You know you can't do that trick.
Oh, yeah, I really didn't
Well, I guess we learned a big lesson tonight.
Well, we sure did. Regardless of race, color, or creed, you're all a bunch of male chauvinist pigs.
Oh my God.
Yo, that's what they're saying for the longest. Like when both parents were working, it wasn't about flashing and having brand new cars.
Yeah,
It was for the benefit of the kids. It was like you got vacations, you got a chance to go to school,
Yeah.
you had a Christmas,
Yeah.
you had clothes, you didn't have to worry about stuff. You got to go to YMCA because YMCA ain't free. Boys and Girls Club is not free.
Yeah.
Summer school is not free.
Mm-mm.
You know what I'm saying? Like there was things that was being paid that we took for granted, but that was the purpose of both parents working.
Yeah. Well, like she said, the woman working allowed the man's income to sustain the house and for them to push forward just a little bit.
Yes.
Just and not a lot, because like she said, they never had enough, but they were pushing forward as much as possible as a result of the woman working, which allowed the regulation of those funds that the man was bringing in, so that it wouldn't just be, "Oh, we got through today," like, and that was it. Um, and I like that scene because you actually sent me that clip and I watched it, and that's how I came across this entire episode. I was like, where is that from?
Yeah, I'm crazy like that. I'll be sending memes like crazy. I'm like, look at
I was like, well, what it was James's part. Oh, by the way, he said my name is Henry Evans. So James must be another word for Henry or middle name or something. He definitely an Evans again.
Oh, okay.
I caught that. I wrote that down. Oh, no, that's James right there, baby. But no, it was like his part when he explained why he was doing what he was doing was very interesting to me. Because like we said earlier, it wasn't that she's working. He felt the need to regulate her not working in the position that she was in, because as a man, as he said, historically the woman had to work because we just couldn't get hired anywhere, because reconstruct people don't understand what reconstruction looked like and how long it lasted and why it was so hard for most black communities, because you had some black communities that was thriving, right? The little pockets, but even a lot of those got burned down. Never mind why. Okay, they got burned down. All right.
Yes.
And I'm just saying, for the ones that wasn't like that, it was very hard for them to sustain themselves. And yes, sometimes it was the woman washing clothes, being a wet nurse, being a maid, being whatever, to just bring home the basics, and they had to endure that. And it wasn't about, well, the reason why she's doing this is because I'm lazy. No, it was because this is what was in front of them. So again, black marriage, as you can see, and as she said, in the 60s, my grandmother, meaning not her mother that was born in probably the late 1890s, but her great grandmother who came out of antebellum slavery,
Yep.
was working. So, to the point of traditional black marriage, can we really say, under any circumstances, that it's been the whole picket fence, women staying home situation? Like, even under, and here's the thing, because people say, well, only single mothers had to work. I guess I don't know. No, as you see on these television series, they do not portray single mothers. The first single mother was a woman who had a son, but she on television. But she
Oh,
was
Julia.
a widow. Yes, she was a widow. She was technically a single mother, but she was a widow. Her husband had died. So you see what I'm saying? This idea of single motherhood being the crux of what ushered in the non-traditional like relations. That's not it. That's
No.
not it.
No, because the whole thing like being and that's what somebody like back in the day when you are it was like more than just being a single mother. It was like something like a widower. You're a widow. Widower is for men, or you're a divorcee, and it was different.
Mhm.
There was like some form of like, okay, you've been, marriage.
Mhm.
You need to be protected. You'll get married again. It was something like that that was deemed like you're gonna get married again.
Mhm.
You see that a lot. Even for the white women on the TVs, they were either divorced or
Mhm.
they were a widow.
Right. And as you can clearly tell, inside, like, look at their relationship. They argue, raise their voices at one another. James said he was going to knock her head off. She said she was going to knock his head off. This is a traditional marriage, though. Women talking back. That's been how we have been since we couldn't talk back to slave masters. Okay. So
Yeah.
but when I see this, what makes it so endearing for me is that you can see that traditional black marriage had women speaking up for themselves, even though this is the era where feminism started creeping in real hard, as you can see. Um, real hard. Like, it's so overt here that I just had to be like, oh my God, okay. Let me just
I'll say this: since we're in like fourth generation of feminism,
yeah.
and where are the men's rights? So that's why I agree with them on that. Like, men don't have rights. Men need to have rights now.
And
We
you
have
know
gotten
what?
to that place.
It's so funny because this was filmed in the late 60s, and men were saying, what about men's rights? Now, here's the thing.
Hmm.
Prior to the 60s, right? You talking about 1920, right?
Yeah.
It, the focus wasn't men's rights because you had a depression going on. However,
Yes.
before the depression, men could own property most of the time. Only men could really be gainfully employed. Um, it was a lot of things that benefited men that didn't benefit women, especially on the sexual marketplace. Like, it was a lot that benefited men. In the law, like this, you couldn't vote if you didn't own property, and most women couldn't own property. You see what I'm saying? So women were locked out of resources, locked out of participating in any type of, civil duty. So it's like things started changing so hard, and because essentially, look at the white marriage. The woman feels like a piece of property that isn't respected. Therefore, she's in open rebellion. And like James said, you got everything, and you sitting here complaining to this man, talking about his bald spot, his lips, what he about to get cold. And here's the thing, all he did was come home from work, and this is what she's doing now. Everything that, like, even Florida's salary was being paid out of this man's salary. She's telling her you're higher on his paycheck,
With
right?
the raise. With the raise.
With a raise. And I'm telling you now, white women and the white marriage could never be compared to the black marriage. It can't, because the dynamics is so different. Like, it's just so different. Like a
With
black
all fairness,
woman.
we're going to do this show again later with Maud, because Maud had a friend
Uh-huh.
married, and married, mind you, like the husband, I think they were next door neighbors. The way her friend was with her husband is the way I think where men think that the wife should be.
Okay.
Like, if people, you see how she is, right? She's
Yeah.
like, she
Very.
does everything, and it's like, whoa, lady, slow
Mhm.
down.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I definitely see what you mean by that. But it's so in your face, though. That's what I keep laughing about, because I'm like, yo, this was so upfront. Like, they did not care. And again, this is not in the 80s where men like today feel like feminism started. It's like back in the 60s, this was already rolling to the point she's like, look at these chauvinist pigs. This man just made up with his wife, and they just realized, for instance, he's a firefighter. She wants to keep her job for 2 more years. Now, I don't know if you guys caught, well, actually, you didn't catch the ending of this, where she explained why the 2 years. Essentially, Florida said if he has to take on a second job, that means he's going to be working around the clock. And if something happens to him, her income can't sustain their household. That's why she said 2 more years, because after the second year, it won't be like she'll have to work and do that and he has to keep 2 jobs. That's why she was really on the 2-year thing. So it wasn't just that, well, I just want to work and I don't want him telling me to work. It was, I'm part of this marriage and I also have to look out for you as my husband. And as my husband, you bullheaded. You are. But in order to keep you safe, sometimes I have to take the authority in the relationship and say no, because I love you. Now, at that time, again, we're not talking about traditional relationships. These are just Black marriages and what people are doing because of what's in front of them. And I'm going to be honest with you, most men would say, okay, if I'm a firefighter and I can't pay my bills, then the next idea is get a second job. How do you get a second job after you're working around the clock as a fireman and still be able to function? You're not. So if your wife says, keep one job, I'll work a second job, we'll save so that we can get to a place where our bills are lower and you don't have to work a second job and then I can quit. What's wrong with that? You understand? And most men today would look at Florida and say, if my wife wants to work for 2 years so that I don't have to work all around the clock, only for 2 years, not the rest of her life, because she just want to just do whatever, but she wants to help me, they would take that as a term of endearment. But back in the day, according to Mar and a few other folks, this was chauvinism in its full form.
Now let's look at it in the framework of today. And I'm going to use the reality show of the Housewives.
Okay.
What the men, I'm going to speak for the men, what we've seen is this. Mm-hmm. When a man makes money, it's for the family. Mm-hmm. When the woman makes money, they don't need a man. And it's very different compared to what we just seen, because as the flow of, was on a housewife show, she's making the money for the family and the cost was for her husband.
Right.
But today it's different, because what's that woman, I forgot her name, Wendy Williams, said something about her saying your husband needs to work. Her husband was a police officer, something Brown. She's now on Target. She has the big brown hair. She does the vegan stuff on Target. She has a whole line in Target now.
I seen it. It's on the tip of my tongue. I can't think of it right now, but it's on the tip of
my tongue.
And
the reason why she did everything that she did was that for her husband to not be a police officer, she wanted to retire her husband. Mm-hmm. And the attitude for a lot of women was like, he needs to go back to work. But for her, she's like, he's a police officer. He's always in danger.
Right.
And we talked about, they had a deal. Let me do this so that I can retire you. We're married. Mm-hmm. And that's it. But everybody had an opinion. That's what I'm saying. Like, everybody's in each other's relationship and marriages. Yeah. Y'all need to just stop. Get your own and figure that shit out.
Basically. Okay.
Like, get your own relationship and figure it out.
Basically. Listen. That you ain't told no lies. But give me 1 second, okay?
Okay.
For the listening audience, yes, like, share, and subscribe. I think you made such a profound point about why women work, right? And truth be told, nowadays, because we're in a sense we're losing grip of things and our culture, When people say, well, black women have never supported black men, as you can clearly see, that's always been the case. And even in my own family, my great grandmother, she worked alongside my great grandfather, and they had a head of 10 to 13 kids that they had to take care of, and she had to work in that environment, like in the most racist environment in the world and the time period. Like, you talking about women that they're getting money so that they can advance everyone, including themselves, and that was what was necessary. So, right now, I do feel that there's more women that work to advance their families, but there's some that don't. And the ones that don't, these are the ones that get the airtime on social media. The women that, are like myself, that have given thousands of dollars to their spouse to chase their dreams, in hopes that when they get on their feet, they can help me get on my feet in a different way. This is something that happens in a lot of black relationships because we do understand each other's struggle. But see, that don't get talked about because, as you know, kindness doesn't get airtime. It's only when people
No.
doing debauchery that they get airtime on TikTok and YouTube and these other places. But see, because we don't see it on social media, right? We assume that it doesn't exist. And what happens is we corrode our culture and make people feel that, oh, it doesn't matter what I'm doing. It's not acceptable, and therefore I don't need to do this because the men are self they're self deluding in a sense, telling themselves women work for themselves, and that's not true. Some women work for themselves. Selfish women work for themselves. Women that don't care about their community work for themselves. But there are women, like, and you know this to be true. There's more females out here giving their tax checks to a dude to start his business, and sometimes the business is flipping bricks to help him get on his feet. So that as in a sense, because he can't go to a bank and say, "Hey, I need $10,000, $5,000, $2,000 to do something so I can get myself started." No, they go to their girlfriends, they go to their working wives, and these tax checks is what's spent on that. Like, I know a lot of females in the hood that gave up their tax checks to help a dude start his business. But
Oh, but wait, I
no,
gotta say something on that part. I
mm-hmm,
gotta say something on this one. If he's not willing to work, do
mm-hmm,
not give him no money.
right,
You gotta. This is the part where my father, typical Caribbean man. You know, he doesn't say much, but he always works, right? He taught me, my sister, my brother, like anytime you meet a man with soft hands, with a weak handshake, that is not someone you can trust.
mm-hmm,
He has no work habits,
mm-hmm,
no ethics. He
mm-hmm,
doesn't understand, that you working for your money. This
right,
could be somebody who's going to, rob you.
mm-hmm,
And I've seen it a lot of times where, you know, you invest in somebody, but you don't see a return. What Flo did was like 2 years, and there was a breakdown. They had a communication, they had a budget, they had everything else. I don't want anybody giving out their money with somebody who ain't come up with no plans. If there's no plans, take your money, invest it, spend it, save it, share it. That's it. But if he's not willing to work for his own dreams, ladies, please do not give him no money.
Listen, I don't believe in just giving men money, right? Because men, they can get their own money. However, if you're a wife, or let's say you're just in a relationship and you want to see your man advance, right? And you know what his struggle is, and you say, listen, the reason why he's not working right now is because he can't get ahead without some sort of assistance. Because you know how they love to talk about black women and public assistance. But black men need assistance too, but they don't have access to it in the way their counterparts do. So, when women do like Florida did and say, listen, I don't want to stop working until we're at a place where you can fly and I can rest in my femininity and know everything's okay.
Yes.
Unlike James, who took that as her saying, I love you more than I love resting in my femininity. Some people would take that as, she's just being masculine. But those who know that she wasn't being masculine. She actually was being the most feminine thing she can be, which is self-sacrificing. And that's something you don't see every day. Yeah.
And she was forgiving too. Like, she didn't I'm going to spend the night here and that's it. She's like, okay, let's go home. You know what I'm saying? Like, she was very quick to forgive. Like, okay, we hash it out. You understand? I'm calling your bullshit. That's what she did. Like, you buying this stuff? And she's like, well, he's a black man. And she said, what am I? Like, tan? Like, what's right? So she was like able to call his BS. Yeah. And she's like, and she was able to reason without, now here's something, without, right? They all talk bad about their husbands behind the husband's back, but not in front of the husbands, while calling him baldy and all the stuff they've been talking about men behind the back, without dehumanizing the husband.
Right.
She was able to get her point across.
And I think that's the difference between the black relationship and the white relationship. I think, with Maude and her family, right? Because we're going to have to talk about Maude. This is a whole situation here, okay?
Yeah, Maude is the boss. Maude is the boss.
Yeah, like, oh my God. But
Maude is the pimp. She's a pimp.
And I don't mean to say that, but she did come on very pimpish. Like
this is her fourth husband.
Oh my God.
This is her fourth husband. And mind you, she got a daughter. So the man is taking care of her daughter, and grandson. This is his family too. So look, there was nothing too about this time period. When you got married, you married the whole family. The whole family got the understanding that you're also part of the family. So stepfather, whatever, is still the father. So he's still the man of the house. Right. They understand the paradigm. Like, that's it, right? But she's like controlling everything without working. She's a pimp.
She is a pimp. And she's like the worst kind of pimp, because
worst kind of pimp? What you mean, worst kind of pimp?
Most pimps. Most pimps will at least try their merchandise out and give me some sex. She ain't giving him nothing. And I'm like, dang, like, at least you get a little bit of peen from the pimp. He ain't even getting that from her.
She's a big pimp. She big pimping. Like, you have a maid that been working all day, literally from the morning to 9 p.m. and there's no dinner, and you come out with something out of cardboard. Now, understand. She's a TV dinner. Like, people don't understand. People are like, oh, that's microwave. You cannot microwave TV dinners because they'll blow up your microwave because they have aluminum foil.
Yeah.
Those things.
Yeah. I remember that. But you see, this couldn't be a black couple where there's a maid there, yet there's no food. And he asked her what's for dinner, and she gave him a TV dinner, and it wasn't even warmed up. Like, what black family do you know where the woman can come in there, not working, not doing nothing in the house, and not giving him no sex while he can't even eat with a maid in the house?
Oh, that's the marriages of today, though. That's marriages of today. That's what we had today.
Yeah, I don't know about the maid part, but I will say marriages today is filled with people that feel because they're married, I don't have to do anything. I don't have to give you sex. There's nothing you can do if you don't want a divorce. Essentially, the divorce is the leverage in the relationship for the ones that don't get a divorce, right? Like, there's a lot like that. It's not all, but there's a lot like that. And
we have to say, I just want to say, like, we have to say that it is a plan, because there were, I forgot what podcast I was listening to years ago. One of those not TV, but it was the radio ones, before it came on YouTube. And for white women, they said, like, if you want to be a millionaire, you have to go ahead and marry a black guy who's an pro athlete.
Oh yeah.
That was their plan, right? Is to marry him.
Yeah.
And there was a plan, and then you saw black women doing it too. But like, but that was always the plan. Like, if you want to be a millionaire, just marry rich and then divorce rich.
Yeah, marry rich, divorce rich. Look at the truth of the matter. Like, that's the dynamics of relationships in their community. It's about exchange of monetary funds. It's about exchange of resources. Whereas within Black traditional marriages, that's not the framework that they're working on, because a lot of times they didn't have resources to exchange and give in terms of marriage. A lot of times Black women married poor and died poor. Like, yes. You're talking about a man, like today they say when you get into a relationship, a man is supposed to elevate you. In Florida's case, right? How is James elevating her? He finna die one of these days with his.
Ooh, don't tell people yet because they haven't watched it yet. You don't want them looking for damn. That was the saddest thing ever. They showed that one time on the repeat, and we all literally cried. Now this is back in the day when parents had to call the TV stations. Yeah. And write letters to tell them not to air it again. I have never seen it aired again after that. To know that he passed away, and I was like, but mind you, I didn't know that as a kid. We found that out in the 80s, and I was like, what? And all it took was like, what's the phone? And
that's true. We didn't see it until the 80s, but while it was being filmed in the late 60s and it aired in the early 70s, yeah, we didn't see that, or wasn't on television per se. I seen it in the mid 80s, but yeah, you're right. But I'm gonna be honest with you. Look. The same thing goes on today. Most Black women do not marry up in class, right? And they die at the same level they came in at, if not worse. So in Florida's case, right? And I remember some people saying that she should have never married him if when he died, right? That put her in a worse circumstance because
she didn't know.
Right. There was no insurance money. They wasn't. Here's the thing. They had been living in the same project for like their entire life. And remember?
Okay, you gotta give people the history of the projects. People gotta understand the projects were not projects. They were something else. They were tenements. Mm-hmm. And also they were married, so the husband could actually stay there. Because keep in mind, projects, you couldn't have a husband.
Right.
She had a husband, so they didn't stay. You know what I'm saying? Like.
So they were paying full rent. They were paying full
yes. rent. So like, but these were tenements that they promised Black people to come into the major cities. Mm-hmm. But there's a whole history of that where they got people to leave their lands and to come out to the city and promise them jobs and everything else, and everything fell through. So there's a whole history of that. It wasn't, the whole term of SSI and all that other stuff, that was just starting then. Right. It wasn't, stuff that we assume that the stuff that we have now, the benefits we have now, we assume they've always been there. They haven't been there.
That is so true. It hasn't always been in place like that. And I do think that people fail to realize that in 2023, because it's so easy to forget those little nuanced things that make up the difference between traditionalism and traditionalism.
We didn't have colonial pen. Colonial pen came out, the late 80s? Now, you know what I'm saying? Like little insurance packages for funeral homes or benefits, like your husband work. Like if you work, you still get disability because there's a tax. Like they still pay taxes.
Right. They still
pay little on-off jobs.
Right. But keep in mind, even his job at some point, for instance, when he lost his job, they suffered in the projects. And my thing is, Florida marrying him, she obviously married him for love. She did not marry him to move up. But that's where we're at today. Most people are trying to say in a lot of spaces that women should marry for the purposes of what marriage is supposed to be, not because they're in love. But if that's the case, a lot of men more men than now would not get married because women are looking to elevate in terms of their financial status, and that's not possible. That's not really. I'm not.
No, that's possible. You just look at it this way, right? Because you're in Baltimore, so you already been to New York, Maryland area, the DMV. You've seen rich people. I'm from Florida, so we've seen rich people. Now, we're not talking about your little rappers, your NBA stars. We're talking about rich. We're talking about legacy rich, right?
Dumb rich. Yeah, I know.
Yes.
Dumb rich.
Right? So when you're a woman married into that family, you do sign a prenuptial agreement. That's something a lot of people don't know. There is a disclosure when you don't talk about the business. It's, the real wealthy people, you do have to produce children. There's a contract. There's it's nothing we can. This is the rich people that we know, like rich, not like trying to be famous rich. These are rich people that's like they don't care about no fame. They got fortune. When you marry into those relationships, and you come in with nothing, and you say you're going to elevate yourself, there's expectations for you. You just don't sit down and spend the money. You don't have access to money like that. Even if you're a husband or wife, you don't have access to the money. You're married into the family. You have an allowance. Yeah,
you do have an allowance. I'll be honest with you. My father, he was pretty well off because of my great grandparents and stuff. But yeah, my mother had an allowance. She had a credit card. She wasn't working, but he paid for it. Now, I'm gonna be honest with you. My mother didn't have a maid, right? But she was a stay-at-home mom. But keep in mind, the reason why she could be a stay-at-home mom is because my father had real estate from his great-grandparents, where he had apartments that he rented. He had 3, and all of the homes were paid off. And he had 3 cars at the time that was paid off. He had a job that was equivalent of 85 to 90K a year here with no bills. Remember, there was no cell phone bills. You see what I'm saying? Like, food was really cheap. And he could afford to have my mother at home. But even though my mother was at home, right, I remember my father saying the same thing Snoop said about his wife. I need you to do something. Even though you may not be making a lot of money, I don't want me to be your whole world. When I come home, I just want to rest. I don't want you to say, oh my God, he's home. Let me just start talking, because I ain't been. My father didn't like that. And so he wanted her to do something with her time, especially when we were in school, other than just sit home. And a lot of times when we say, well, we want women to be traditional. No, people don't. They really don't want women.
Women don't want to be traditional. We didn't live in traditional times. I'm going to say this so we can get it in retrospect, right? We do a disjustice when we assume that everything is brand new when it's not. And also we assume that things don't come from somewhere else. When we were coming up, there were so many magazines out there for women feeling unfulfilled, being just housewives.
Yeah.
And people do not understand there's and we have to be honest. Now this is I wish women were more honest about it. It's not about the men. A lot of women didn't feel fulfilled just staying at home. And we heard it from our own mothers. I could go to work too. I didn't want to stay at home. There was a lot of stuff that I don't know, moms or mothers understood the impact they had on us. That's why me as a man, I never want my wife to stay at home because you're not going to blame me and the kids for you not living your best life. I don't want to hear it. I go to work, you go to work. I don't care how much money you make.
He said, I don't want to hear it.
No, no. Everybody say a choice. I have a choice too, but there is something wrong about being dependent on a human being when you're a functional adult. It don't feel good. I've seen a lot of guys like this, and we talk about the hobosexuals, people who are sleeping with people just to have a place to stay. It's not a good look. It's not a good feeling to go ahead and not work and not understand the meaning of a dollar and depending on somebody else. It doesn't feel good. So we're not being honest and being realistic where women did not feel fulfilled just staying at home. Because when we're at school, it's 8 hours.
Do you think that was somewhat Maud's issue as well?
No, Maud is a pimp. Mom is different. Maud is this is her fourth marriage. She ain't getting married. She ain't working for nobody. She is using marriage to her fullest capability. I think Maud is like up there with who wrote those those novels, Emma and those Jane Austen books. That's who Maud.
Dang, oh my God, you're a mess.
Maud is using marriages. Maud is actually using her marriage to elevate her. She is not.
Well, she said to elevate her, but
she's Jane Austen. That's who Maud is. Maud is Jane Austen.
I know who you talking about. I know who you talking about, Jane Austen. Okay, I know.
Yeah, like she's from those times. It's like, do I work or do I stay at home and become a wife and enjoy it? That's
right. You know what? Too. I think you don't understand. I think to a degree, right? Both men and women have the intellectual capacity to explore who they are as individuals and seek to express that, right? But in the physical world, right? There's responsibilities based on what you are. You see what I'm saying? And that kind of convolutes things because I'm a woman, right? I have a womb. I have kids. That's my role there. But just like my husband, I want to do I have a passion too. And it has nothing to do with my gender, right? And same thing with my husband. He has a passion too, but it has nothing to do with the fact that he gotta go get bacon. Like,
but understand, like I will say this for us men, it's like when I have to work, right? Mm-hmm. Wherever my passion is, I don't let my boss in it, and I don't seek permission. It is going something I have to make money or put something on the side to make money, so I don't have to go to work. I think that's where we have to be honest. That's what Flo was at. She worked not only just for survival, but also for the benefit for her family and her marriage. That's why she works.
Right.
What we're getting, what I see like we skip over is the fact that when mothers, there's nothing you can do with it's like you're making women into doing everything themselves, but you also had extended families. If you have a sister and your sister ain't got no job, why she ain't helping with them kids? She ain't got no kids. Right. Why she ain't here?
Right. She need to be, and that's what the grandmother was for, and the great mother was great. When you retire, where you can't work no more, you could, at least in the Black community, you couldn't just go to some island and sit and do you. No, your job as the grandma is to live in the house. If your husband is in the line, you move in with your daughter or your son and start babysitting them kids to save them on that daycare. That's your job. But
that's about daycare. Daycare is a mortgage.
Yeah, it is. It's a
straight up mortgage. Because one of my friends had daycare, and he still had to pay the woman's rate when she's on vacation for the month, and he had to send his kids to the person that she suggested for him to go to. Not suggest, either they stay home with him, or that they go to the person that she's like, and there's a contract. And I'm just like, what? I'm like, why don't people get nannies? Because it makes more sense. If you in my house, I got cameras in my house to see what's going on. My kids are not going to just hang around a bunch of other people's kids, coughing, sneezing, and boogers thrown everywhere and catching diseases and bring them home. I got a nanny. Like, this is ridiculous. Like, pick them up from school, come home.
This is ridiculous. Like,
I get Blue Apron delivered. Just make a quick meal, 1, 2, 3, and we're done. And you can go home afterwards. I'll be back in 5 hours. To me, it was ridiculous to not have nannies that everybody's paying daycare, and it's like daycare is sometimes like $2,000 a month for one kid.
Yeah,
and you got to bring milk. You got to bring your own milk, your own toilet paper, your own tissue. That makes no damn sense.
That right there is what killed me right there. That right there. Now, I'll be honest with you. If you have a mom or grandma that saves you as far as like watching your children, that will make you feel like you can have another child. because but if your first child came up and you had to put him in daycare and deal with that, no, that's why a lot of kids be having little brothers 10 years younger than them, because it's like
now you babysitting there 10 years old.
That's what you gotta do. That's what I did. My two young. I couldn't do it. I was dying. But to be honest with you, the culture in the family was like my mother helped a lot. My mother and my stepmother helped a lot with my oldest child. And when my second child came along, my sisters and stepsisters, they helped out a lot. So it was kind of easy on me. But on the third child, that was 10 years later, and I was glad I waited that 10 years because I needed them older too to help. So, but that goes to the traditionalism of the culture, and that's the thing. Like, we forget sometimes that our traditions has a lot to do with our problems, right?
But also it had a lot with our survival. We have to get back to that. Like, you need the extended family. Mm-hmm. Like, we can't live as though, no, I'm sorry, white people, I don't want to scare you. I don't want to, it's not a race thing or nothing like that. But it was on TikTok and they asked a question, do white people even have cousins? And you know what? We all thought about that. See, you too. Like, do they have family? Do they? They never mention anything that anybody they related to. You notice that, right? You might see a brother or a sister, but see, do they have cousins? Do they have aunties? I mean, it's not something they talk about.
Okay, Lifetime television. No, you're right. They only talked about some. They didn't talk about it. I didn't.
You see?
You're right.
Right. So it's like, for us, Black and brown and Asians, we do rely on the institution of extended families. It's weird when we're trying to be with the Joneses. I'm like, forget the Joneses. I'm with Jose's and the Johnsons. That's where I'm at. So we're gonna keep with the Jose's and the Johnsons. I ain't doing this by myself.
Listen, I'm with you on that. I am so with you on that. But I'm just, even though I grew up, I didn't go to daycare, mind you. Again, my father, he worked. My mother stayed at home. He was a steel worker. She was a housewife. However, everyone else in my family, was in what I consider a traditional Black marriage, which was everyone working, everyone pulling their own weight, and everyone doing it for the purposes of advancing that family. Yes. Not to skip over the fact that they have a mind and they may want to do things, that makes them happy. But it is. They still
did it too. They still, here's something, right? Mm-hmm. My mother only allowed us to go over aunties that has similar values like her.
Yeah.
And my father is the same way. So when they had to go out, we knew who we were going to, or we knew who was coming over. That was the whole thing of the extended family, like when you need breaks. So when my aunties, uncles need breaks, their kids came over our house. We just knew when your parents needed breaks. We've gotten away from that. Yeah. Where we think we can do everything ourselves. And that's what I was saying before. When you actually look at the magazine articles back in the day with women articles, nothing against women. I just want to show you like how things have changed. Mm-hmm. Women really were not fulfilled with just taking care of family and kids. You have to come up with the compassion to understand like they wanted a life. Yeah. You get tired of watching Barney. You don't want who want to go to a PTA meeting all the time?
Right. You get tired of it. And that's the thing. I don't think there's a lot of forgiveness today. I think a lot of the rhetoric is about why women won't cook and why women won't just, do what someone says, although I don't know what anyone is saying. There's
a reset. Women can't cook. Women cannot cook. There's a reset now. We got a reset. Brothers, we cook. Now, it would change. Women cannot cook. I don't want no woman cooking for me. I taste their food.
Listen, you ain't saying nothing, but I get it, Stan. I get it. All right. But, I mean, I'm just saying there's no forgiveness anymore. And I think for me, I can forgive someone like James, right? Even though James would not go upside my head, I'm gonna be honest with you.
That was a weird thing too. Like, what you mean when he said like it was abuse? I'm like, okay, did he yell? Did he? You know what I'm saying? That was a weird. James wasn't that type of like to hit flow.
Right, that wasn't. But she was just copying what Maud had said, and she was just fooling around because he was like, "What did you talking about abuse?" He didn't know what she was talking about, so that's how I know he ain't abused her. But they was just talking.
Okay.
Yeah, that because he was in total shock. He was like, "What are you talking about?"
Yeah, people gotta say when they say abuse back in the day, it was on.
Yeah.
I want like yes, during that time period, like there was something I talked to a friend of mine about. It was on a different podcast, and I had to let her know like we forget something about Vietnam.
Yeah.
Like the impact Vietnam had in our community, and how like there were when men came back, there were like I remember there was certain people like certain friends' homes I wasn't allowed to go to. We didn't have names for PTSD yet.
Right. We did.
Right? Because there were some people like, don't go there, wait till the wife come back. There was a lot of wives that had to go to work because their husbands were suffering from PTSD. People don't understand, like there were a lot of things we take for granted that was happening in the 80s and 90s, and we didn't have names for it yet.
A lot of things we didn't have names for and we didn't know. A lot of things.
Especially for us, child abuse, we had no names for no child abuse. We survived. We were some strong kids. We had to we were outside the house and not coming home until 7 o'clock. We had no phone. Better go to strangers' homes and call our parents.
Right. I mean, I've been through the ringer, but it's like, I just
these kids don't know how good they got it. They got a cell phone. We had to like borrow a quarter. Not go. And this crazy part, right? Knock on somebody's porch. See, and then we get a collect call, and those collect calls were not cheap because you get a whooping for a collect call. But I'm like, you ain't gave me no money.
What is it, $3.50? No, yeah, it was almost $4, and you had to put the quarters in, $4 worth of quarters.
Ooh,
I remember that. Unless you're calling from the jail.
Yes. But as a kid, you didn't make collect call because like if you didn't, like you go to a neighbor house that had a porch, that was the only way you could go. You don't go inside the house, they had to give you the phone outside on their porch. I mean, there are a lot of things kids today don't understand, like how we survive as kids.
Yeah.
In a weird place where it's like you're a latchkey kid, but then you have these bars on the inside of your house or the outside of your house. It was a whole bunch of stuff that was going on. And yet we're all coming out here thinking like, living on the edge of the water, living the best that we can. I'm like, no, we were.
It was a little different. It was a little different growing up.
We were, what I'm saying? We were living a reality that caused a lot of stuff. And we're not, I would say, one, we're not grateful. Mm-hmm. And two, we're not being honest.
What do you think we need to be more honest about in this regard? As far as, what do you think?
The honesty would be this. We do need each other.
Yeah.
That's the honest. And also the honesty is how do we get to be with each other? Because where we at now is a pretty messed up place.
I'll say the biggest fear of mine when it comes to telling someone, that I need you in that way is not telling them that I need you or even showing them that I need you. Because my thing is your actions should speak for you, right? But it's about someone holding that over your head, like Maud. Okay? If he was to ever say to her, I need you, that would be
those episodes that happened.
listen, I don't even know what that would look like. I don't know. But
when it comes to money, Maud is on it. She's like, what? Like, what did you do? Who you did it with? What? I need to see all the paperwork. I'm like, well, go ahead, Maud. And that was the whole thing about Maud. Like, you threaten her peace, it's on. I think that's the place where we're at. Like, the honesty is I say this the honest part. We do have to learn to live alone, but also at the same time, build our own pods of people and make sure like the next generation like not be so involved. Like, please like understand this part. Get our people relationships.
yes,
Let them work that stuff out.
please.
Encourage them to go back to each other. When there was nothing going on, because if that happened nowadays, they would have had a divorce. Flo and Henry would have had a divorce. Y'all would have sat there and separate them, and you would have called his job. They had him fired and all this weird stuff.
People are vindictive right now. And when
You know what I'm saying?
vindictive, I mean like they take it to a whole nother level of trying to get back. And that's another thing too in a relationship when you're arguing. And I think we do it more today where we get into this mode where when we, like, for instance, let's suppose it was me and you arguing the same way James and Florida was arguing. And you told me, you're going to knock my head off. Well, I'm going to respond to you and say, you know what? Matter of fact, I'm not going to say I'm going to knock your head off. I'm going to do it right now. And then when the police come, I'm going to say I was scared. And now you go to jail and then you lose your job. And then now I can't pay half my rent. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yes.
And that's the thing, and that's why I always tell people you don't want a relationship where it's just respect, because women and men, I'll say that, don't just respect. If you don't genuinely love somebody, you're never going to respect them in the way they need to be respected. Because if I genuinely love you, it doesn't matter what you say to me or what you do to me. I'm not going to want to see you like down, period. Like we can go back and forth and we can argue, but I'm not going to want to see you down. Unlike Maud over here, she would see this dude out front asleep and she would look out the window and say, good riddance, like to her own husband, and expects him to go to work and still pay the bills. Like this is
her fourth husband.
It's her fourth husband. So this is the difference between what I feel that the world is now.
Flo's sticking with one man and one man only, and that's it. Jane Austen, aka Maud, is
we should make a
out these husbands left and right for her livelihood.
We should make a meme about that. We should make a meme about that.
I mean, we look for each his own. Like everybody's either going to be a Jane Austen or you going to marry and work. I will say this. I don't know if there was a post where there's something about women want men to stay home and not work, and I put out like men need to work.
Yeah.
And men got to work. Men have to work. The whole thing of making men retire from a job when they're so young don't work. Here's why I say what I say.
Yeah.
I've seen it. At the gym, you'll see older men who retired, and I met a few of them, and then next thing I know, they're not there anymore and they passed away. And it's like within 2 years, they either got cancer or they got a heart attack, because your body is meant to be in motion. You're not meant to sit down and golf every day.
Right.
Not saying work as a slave, but there's a purpose with working, and we gotten away from the whole thing like having a job is not a bad thing,
right,
because you're having that interaction with somebody, with peers. You're working on a project. You're getting outside the house. Like work, there's a benefits with working, and we've gotten away from that idea of like work is a benefit. There's a benefit with getting a job, with working, earning money.
Yeah.
It's not enslavement or servitude or something crazy like that.
Right.
But you do need to be active.
Yes. And whether or not you're active Right, it's the activeness that does help with life expectancy too. So I definitely know what you're saying is true, because I've heard some other stats about that as well. But see, that's the thing. It's like, when we look at life expectancy in relationships, we look at it as, listen, as a woman, I'm not built to do something but so long, and a man, he's not built to not do anything but for so long. And so we have to maintain these quote unquote untraditional relationships for our health, which tells me that this isn't quote untraditional as people would like it to mean. Whether
keep in mind for women at a time period, like, it was something I want to say this earlier, where where I saw it growing up in the 4th grade. I realized this. Now, mind you, this is the late 80s, right? 4th grade. Going in towards the 90s, it was a weird situation where, you remember they used to make us sell candy to our neighbors? They don't do that no more, but that's what they had to make us do as children for fundraising. And I remember I went to one of these neighbor houses. Now, mind you, she was divorced, but she was working, and she was a single mother, but she was divorcee. And she's like, well, don't your mother have a job? And I'm like, no. She's a stay-home mom. She's like, well, what look like giving my money towards you? And then it wasn't just her, it was another woman. For me as a kid, I just like watch and see things.
Right.
And I just saw things like, oh, okay. So I knew next time I had fundraising, who to hit up. And I never hit up the divorcee or single moms. I hit up the married moms.
Right.
Because they're more generous with like buying the stuff and helping out with the schools. But I was aware back then as a kid, just saw like, okay, what was happening. And it was more so, in the 90s, where women were making money and were making more money. And it was looking down at women who were not working and depending on their husbands, like your man saying no to you. If you had a job,
right,
you wouldn't depend on him. And that's what I'm saying. Like, women are not honest. And we're not honest, including the men too, ourselves, where there's a look down when you don't take care of your business in your life. Same thing happens to men too.
Yeah.
If you see a man don't work, he depend on his girl for everything, you just look at him sideways and like,
right,
we're good.
Yeah. It's almost biological, and I would say it is biological. But to be politically correct, it is almost a biological that is built into us, or we're wired to that. I will say that, just to kind of piggyback off something you said about like the generosity coming from, well, let's say that trait coming from the married women, right? Let me be honest, like in this episode of Maude, right? As we know it, or you helped us understand that she is on her 4th husband, and this is how she is with her 4th husband. Now, the other 3 men, I'm sure, did not have a happy time with her, okay? And even the one she's with right now looks like that bald spot is all her, okay? That's what he looked like. That bald spot right there in the back of his head looked like that came from her. But when we say, for instance, a woman that's a single mom, that's holding down her children and stuff, that she's not, let's say her moral character is in question unless she was married. Are we really looking at marriage and saying that your character as a person can be judged because you got married? Looking at women like Maude? Really?
Also, look at Maud's daughter. Maud's daughter is divorced. And she's a single mom. Like, I think the father came a couple times, but it was a disappointment. Right? So it's not like it's brand new. That's why I wish sometimes we need to actually look at old TV shows and see, like, because our TV shows now really don't reflect what's going on now.
It don't.
It doesn't reflect who we are right now as a culture, as a people. It just doesn't do it.
It don't. And I will say that it right now I get tired almost of people making shows that do not reflect reality, the reality that we live in. Either we're making television that is so far in the future we cannot relate, or we're making shows that just don't relate to what's happening right now. In terms of our reality, like the social media thing, right? People are not getting human interaction, to pick up on subtle cues, right? So the marriage rates are suffering because people don't know how to pick mates, because all they know is this person has told me what it was, and then next thing I know is something else, because all you're listening to is what they're typing you and telling you in an instant. You're not spending time around them because everybody's busy, and everybody's online and texting. And this is why I don't, the texting thing, I can't do it. I like to pick up the phone a lot, especially when I have time, because the texting, it takes away your humanity, in my opinion. And I think a large degree of some of the problems that we're experiencing right now in relationships within marriages, it has a lot to do with that. But I think
I agree with you. Yeah, I agree with you, because I don't know if people know it or not, but a lot of nightclubs are closing. I'm not a nightclub person, but when you look at social places like nightclubs are closing, there's articles written this year how many nightclubs are closing down. You look at institutions like McDonald's losing money, and they're shutting down. You know, like they shut down a corporate office for a week, I think, or a day, allegedly. Right?
Yeah.
And then they're wondering why McDonald's was pretty big on the kids' meal, right? First time in history it plummets. I'm like, yeah. Have you looked at it? You made it look like some kind of corporate place. McDonald's used to be a fun thing as a kid to go to. It's full of colors.
Yeah, it looked like Ronald McDonald, just his whole house.
Yes, the Ronald McDonald Land. There was a place for you as a kid to run through. I mean, this was going on for decades. And then I'm going to name these people. You MBA majors come around and just ruin everybody's lives. So you MBA majors, you guys sucks. You cutting off stuff for profit, and it's like nobody's winning.
Not at all.
But you look at, like, you know, you gotten away from like this place that used to have Wi-Fi. So as a parent, you have Wi-Fi, so you go on the computer and your kids can go play with other kids and the little LAN thingies, you know, whatever they need to get into. That's what they did. But you made it look so corporate now. It looks dead. Like, I don't want to eat there.
Listen. I don't get me wrong. Every great now and then I swing past, but I'm always in the drive-through. Okay, I'm in the drive.
But yeah, but remember, like, they used to have some good toys, so you got rid of that. So you gotten away from a lot of things that's not making any sense. So when you get rid of a lot of stuff, and then you're wondering why we losing so much stuff, you gotta look at it like, what did you cut off? So like you said before, where people don't know how to engage in conversations, I'm like, yeah, because people don't know how to talk. I had one girl ask me for an online date. I'm like, girl, you in front of me right now. Let's go out. Like, I don't have time for this. She's talking about some anxiety. Then I'm like, then you don't need to be dating, and I don't need to be dating you. I ain't got time for this stuff. Like, look.
Pretty much. I feel like people wanted to have virtual dates and stuff like that. And I'm like, listen, if you can't come to my city, I can't go to your city. We can't sit down in each other's presence and laugh and joke, but we gotta be, in some virtual land, and we're supposed to be on a date. Listen, it's not for us. And that's why I stopped doing the online dating thing, because I had a online profile, and I said, you know what, this isn't working, because people can't get to know me in this way. Even if we were in the same city, it's still rigid. And I'll be honest with you, getting to marriage is going to take for other things to fall.
I would say this: we have to forgive ourselves on that part and be honest. We cannot get to marriage if we can't introduce ourselves in person. So marriage is the last thing that anybody can talk about in the next 20 years.
The last thing.
It's really the last thing, because we're not there yet. That's why I said before, we gotta be content being alone, but also being social. Get a boo, but she gotta live in her own house, because it ain't working out. It's gonna be like Smurf Village. Everybody got to have their own house and meet up.
Not
Cause we're not there yet. We are not there yet. We cannot expect marriage when everybody up here taxing. They want to go ahead and travel, get a buddy plan. Nobody got time for that. Don't you want to go home to somebody and just pass gas? Don't y'all?
No. I'm still stuck on the Smurf situation. Like everybody has their own house. But you know what? Stop.
No, because we all set in our ways. Nobody, because we can't look. If you have never even said hello, but then you expect to go in somebody's space and they gotta accept they ain't even there yet. We can't even get the boyfriend and girlfriend stuff right.
But you know what? But that goes to the point that people are talking about. Like right now, there's certain content creators that keep saying pushing marriage. Just get married. Put your husband first. Put your wife first. You know, just marriage. But then when somebody says, "Wait a minute, yo, we have internal problems, and we need to stop talking about marriage and start talking about what's wrong with us as individuals." Because there's a whole generation of kids like me that grew up without fathers. I was one of very few that had my father in my life growing up.
No, but we're divorced. Remember, we're the divorce generation. We skip over divorce generation kids. Everybody's single parent.
Right, everybody. This was our situation, so we need to do a lot of healing, as well as the ones coming up and older. So yeah, I'm totally with you when you say, listen, let's stay for a while, right? Let's stop talking about marriage. In my case, I would say should never talk about marriage, because when your relationships are in order, marriages fall in order as well. It's not, you don't have to get the marriage in order for your relationship to fall in order. No. Have a good relationship, and then marriage automatically follows as a natural thing that happens in the flow and ebb of things. So, for me, I would never talk about marriage for real. But I think tonight, if we needed to separate between this, or let's say clear the air with this whole idea that at some point back in the 50s, women were traditional. Black women used to stay home and take care of the kids. Where?
Yeah, the black woman that did stay home and take care of the kids was either your Auntie May, grandma or great grandma. Those are black women that stayed at home, take care of the kids because mom had to go to work.
Right. That
was make it clear. Everybody work. If you're black, Mexican, Chinese, from somewhere else, both parents work. We have documented proof. We have seen essays. Even white people both had to work. That was tradition. Everybody worked. That's it. Everybody worked.
I can't even fault people for not knowing, because like some people don't know they haven't really researched life in the 50s to this degree. And the reason why I chose these shows is because these shows, like for instance, All in the Family with Archie Bunker. That was how a lot of white men that was like on the fence about racism, that was like a real picture of how people really were. Like that was a real picture, meaning they interacted with black people, but there was still a race issue there. That's a real
boundary. They're like, I know you, I don't know them.
Right.
I like you.
I don't like your people, right? But who watches that now? That is, let's say, in these online spaces that have seen what America used to look like all the way.
Still looks like that. And we're honest. If we're honest, it's still like that. It's still. Even right now on TikTok, they're discussing like why white women don't want to have black female friends. I mean, that right there is on TikTok. It's happening today.
That's true. That's true.
That's happening today. So we're still going through it. So it's not going to go away. I don't want nobody like, it needs to go away. Guess what? It's not going to go away. And, I don't care anybody saying they mix. We all mix too. So guess what? That don't help.
Wait,
so
no, you can't be repeating Martin out here saying we all people of different colors.
No. I'm talking about the black mixed people that come up in here Talking about all this stuff. Yeah, we mixed too. We got like we ain't talking. No, you go sit down. So you go sit down. Go sit down. You're not brand new. You're not brand new. Now we're Obama kids. We're the direct descendants of the mixed people. So you go sit down. You're not brand new. Somebody need to tell you about yourself. And we'll probably review that movie. I forgot that movie. When she was crying about her mother, she was passing for white. Her mother passed away.
Imitation of Life?
Yes. We'll talk about y'all later.
Yeah.
But this is not the time. Y'all ain't brand new, so y'all go sit down.
Yeah. And you know what? I seen that movie back in the 80s. And did you cry? Because I know I cried.
Oh, when she said "Mama," when she cried for her mother, I was like, "Oh God!"
I was crying.
That was scary.
I was crying. And remember when she was hugging you on the casket with the flower?
It off. I'm like, "What is this?" The casket.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the casket.
You know, right then there, that woke me up as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
Now, as I got down, I was still passing for African American, but I had to keep, I had to keep my, to remember not to forget where I come from.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to end up like her.
Yeah.
And understand, what she gave up, because she gave up becoming a nurse and a school teacher to be a bunny at some pussycat place.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Just to be around white men. She just gave up her life to be a stripper.
I mean, but
that's where mom found her, stripping.
Right. That is what she was taught. But see, and that's the thing. We think that these.
You there?
Oh, can you hear me? Can you hear me, Stan?
And that right there was a wake-up call. I don't want to do that.
Oh man. Oh, hold on, Stan. I think we're having some interference here.
I'm gonna be black and love my family no matter what. I don't give it up for nobody.
Yeah, I know.
Because she could have had a better life accepting who she was. She still could have married white, because her mom did.
Mm-hmm. Well, no, not necessarily. Not necessarily. Right? Not necessarily.
She could have married white. She could do anything you want to, but she didn't. She could have went to a black school and just gotten the scholarship. That church. That's when churches actually did something. That's another subject. Became a nurse and a school teacher, and still explore her life. Mm-hmm. But she gave it all up to be a stripper. And I was like, girl, what are you doing?
But we say that now, but it was a thing back then. But you know what? We gonna have to come back.
Yeah, I can hear you now. Yes.
Okay, we're gonna have to come back to this conversation and talk.
Yes, I can hear you. Yes. Lola, you there?
Can you hear me? Can you hear me, Stan? We're having issues. Hold on.
Okay.
Hold on. Give me 1 sec. Let me see. Can you hear me?
Is it your mic?
I don't think so. Let me see.
You got the little microphone thing?
I do.
Okay.
No, my mic is fine. I think it might be. I think it might be the
No, I
fact
thought
that
you had your
no,
microphone.
yeah. I still got my mic. But I said I think we're over the 2 hour mark, so it might be getting janky. So I think we might have to come back because you know how it is. You can't mess up Beyonce's internet.
I hear you now. I can hear the music.
Yeah. So we're gonna return to this conversation and get it popping again. But I enjoyed you, Stan. I think we made some headway today. And I think at some time we'll get it together. But I think you made the biggest point, which is we have to practice forgiveness and forgiving ourselves.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Yes, I can hear you now.
I'm getting ready to close us out. But I want everybody to take care. And I Can't Withstand does not have a specific time that we come on. These are special shows on the Love Experience. So when we pop in, I mean, you guys will get notifications if you're subscribed. So definitely like, share, and subscribe. And we will see you guys the next time. Hopefully it won't be too long. But when we do come back, we'll be watching movies. So
Can I make a suggestion next time we come back?
Yeah, go ahead.
I want us to look at Sex in the City, season 1.
That does sound pretty nice.
Yes, because when we talked about relationships and meeting up with people.
Yeah.
I want people to look at like how far we came from. They actually had to go out and meet people.
Yeah.
Men actually met women and women actually met men. Where we're at today, it's just a quick swipe left, swipe right, asking people about how much money they have.
Right.
When we're talking about like no relationships leading to marriage, what I want to add is like the reason why you had to become a boyfriend and girlfriend, you got to sell us the dreams of a marriage.
Oh, yeah.
And we skip that. Like, that's why you had a boyfriend. That's why you boot up. Boot up. Yeah, you got to be boot up. Like, you know what I'm saying? You still want to kiss him with a stinky breath in the morning. You want to kiss him, want to kiss her like stinky breath. Like, okay, you boot up. Then you get like it's going to be forever, right? Like, we've gotten away from that. Like, we don't stop these crazy trips to like these no-name places that's not on the map. Just stop it. What happened to people getting the Greyhound bus, seeing how people interact, going on a day trip or overnight trip? Like, start off realistically, folks. Like, we have to get back to that and to not advertise our business to everybody. Be in a relationship and just shut up. Shut up. Be booed up and shut up.
That's your final advice, to get booed.
Yeah, be booed up, shut up, and just think about like if the relationship is going well, you got to look at like, okay, marriage is next after a couple of years, right? Mm-hmm. But like, just that's what I mean. Like, we have to be honest. If you do not have the dating part and people cannot meet on the dating level and being grateful on a date, stop nighttime dating. You gotta see people who they are when they wake up in the morning. The nighttime stuff, you get them at the end of the day. People are tired. You're not getting their real selves. See them during daytime. You got to do that part. Spending time off the internet and the apps, seeing them interact in person, running to their friends, watching how they engage with family members and friends, seeing who they are and their ethics. And then having a relationship, not moving in.
Yeah.
Be separate, right? See how things are working out and go on trips.
Yeah.
See how that car ride going for 2 hours, like each time go for 30 minutes. Next time, okay, 3 months from now, 6 months from now, we're going to go to Monterey Bay. That's an hour and a half drive. Let's see how that trip goes. Okay, let's go for 2 hours. See that? Stop putting on somebody on a plane that you don't know.
That is so true. That is so true. I mean, oh God, I think we're giving them too much tonight. That's so true.
No, they ain't giving them. Look, when we going old fashioned, going traditional, we'll go traditional. We have to go look at the TV show. People were booed up. They were in relationships.
They were.
They did Christmases together and Thanksgivings together. They had Valentine's with the families together, and then by then they're like, you know what? I really can't live this life without you. Mm-hmm. And let's go ahead. And then both parties were elevated. So I know you mentioned before they say marriage was elevation for women. Well, guess what? For men, it was elevation too. Because for men, you learn how to shower. You learn how to what's that thing? Floss your teeth when you get a girlfriend. Look, when I got my girlfriend after college, I did not know my room shouldn't be smell like Fritos. I thought Fritos was a clean smelling room until I got a girlfriend.
Not Fritos.
But you know what I mean? Because you put your shoes out and you think like, oh, okay, it's not like Fritos, it's all good, my room is clean. Women come in like, no, this ain't it. Like, let me help you out with this. There is elevation when you have a woman in your life, but I think we've gotten away from that where we like, women, you gotta stop thinking about the other women. I get where women are right now today. Like if I elevate this man now, it's gonna be for like another woman. Well, guess what? Everybody's doing something for somebody. The relationship is not guaranteed forever.
Right.
A lot of times we forget, like people are just soul steps. They're a step to your soul person, the person you're supposed to be with. You grow with each relationship you're in. Right. Do not think so far ahead in fear and don't move today. That's my advice.
Well, you know what? I think that's the best advice I have heard in a really long time. And I'm so glad that it came from Stan.
But a lot of people from the red pill community going to be shaking their head. He's a simp.
Listen. Well, wait,
and I'm not a simp. I'm romantic, but I'm not a simp. I'm very hardcore. I don't like spending my money. I'm like, I got coupons. I go on dates on coupons. Don't.
Listen, you taking coupons. I'm not going nowhere that costs me anything. Okay, I'm going places that's free. Like, just free places. Now, granted, if I know you, we might go, to my favorite sub shop or something. But I'm not really interested in steak dates and dates at formal places because I'm gonna be honest with you, like I've done that so many times, it's kind of boring now. But I'm gonna be honest with you, I think the best advice is for us to just not focus on marriage, focus on being in our Smurf houses, like you said, and just spending more time out, especially the incel guys. Like, just spend more time around women, around people without trying to have sex and date and do the traditional thing, whatever.
Well, think about the incels happening because nobody's out. Right. But that's the only thing, like people are not, and that's for both parties, men and women. It's like, why are you out? I'm going to, for example, the biggest thing right now is Freaknik. We should do a show about that next week, about Freaknik. No, seriously, because the documentary is coming out.
Yeah.
And it's a reflection of Miami. So people don't understand. If people say, oh, Freaknik, I'm like, no. Nobody can say anything because anybody, Freaknik, you are a child of Freaknik. If you're like in part in Miami now, we all gonna be honest. You're a product of Freaknik. This when parents sit down and talk to you and be honest about their lifestyle, and we're gonna be all good. So that's what I mean. Like everybody up here acting all uppity and forgetting where they came from is not benefiting nobody. But that was a realistic thing of like Freaknik people actually going out. Where you look at today, now a lot of people out of Freaknik, they come up and got married. People ain't gonna say.
Well,
people did get married. There's some people who got married.
It is some from Freaknik, but I'm gonna be honest with you. Children, teenagers, children doing that. I think there's a historical trajectory when it comes to stuff like that, right? And I'll research it because truth be told, Freaknik has always been a thing. It was just called something different in the 50s and in the 20s and stuff like that. It's always been a thing as far as young people are concerned. But I think we're hyper focused on Freaknik because now we have video footage and stuff like that, and it's live, right? But
yes,
we can talk about it because, to be honest with you, the general consensus is: are you going to leave your girl or wife? Because
no,
but my question is: are you going to leave your husband if you see him gawking a girl?
No, look, I'm gonna look. You with me as a woman? Guess what? I'm gonna look. I'm always gonna look. I grew up in Miami, Florida, Dade County. There's a gator popping somewhere. I'm gonna look. I'm always going. I'm black. I'm looking at my surroundings big time. I'm always looking, turn around. I do not care.
Well, no,
if you mad, anyone my date, you're gonna be mad at me. Guess what? I'm always gonna look. Cause I know you looking too. So let's look together, and that's it. There's a difference between looking and gawking everything. Just because I look at a woman, I just look, but I'm not fantasizing and trying to take out my meat and beat it right there and there. That's crazy. Like, I'm not doing that.
I saw that on that Freaknik stuff. I seen that somebody was.
But that's not realistic for all men. I mean, you go to jail for that now. Like that, I would never even think about that. Right? That's crazy. That's crazy to do that. So to go ahead and put like men shouldn't be looking, like men are always gonna look. I'm always gonna look at booty. I don't care if her booty's flat, pound cake, big, whatever. I'm always gonna look. I'm always gonna look. I'm gonna look at the bra sizes, the titties. I'm always gonna look. I'm gonna look. If she got wings on her arms, I'm gonna look. I'm just gonna look. I'm just gonna look. I'm not gonna stare.
Yeah.
But I see it and I keep it moving. If I'm with you, I'm with you. I mean, that's it. But I'm going to look at my surroundings because there's some crazy times now we living in. You got to look. Walking around blind ain't cool because we just came out another mass shooting last weekend. These things that happen every weekend now. It's crazy. It shouldn't be normalized, but you got to look.
Yeah.
I see it.
Yeah. That's true.
If I see a white man in the black neighborhood, I'm calling the police. I'm like, he's not supposed to be here. He wasn't raised here. How many times have white people been in our neighborhood? The next thing you know, it's a mass shooting. We got to call the police. They were not here.
Listen, if I'm telling you now, if the police get a phone call like that today, I think they would show up at your door.
Yes, because we're like, this white man has not been here before. It's suspicious. This is a black community, black and brown community. He's not a school teacher. The kids are in school. Who is he? 911. I'm going to call police. And we all need to call police because we are at that time and age where you have to call police because you're not too sure. It's crazy now. Everybody really needs to look. I need to encourage everybody to look. And yes, if somebody is, some of these BBLs, looking like cartoons, I'm going to call it what it is. One time I talked to one of our friends in one of the group chats. And I told her, like, yeah, Jessica Rabbit is great to look at, right? That's from Roger Rabbit, his wife.
Right.
But I don't want Jessica Rabbit in my house. I don't want Jessica Rabbit in my house. I can look at Jessica Rabbit. Okay, that's cool. I don't want to marry no Jessica Rabbit. I don't want her in my house. I'm good. I saw it. Thank you. Bye. And I keep moving. That's not what I want, right?
Well,
that's what God bless.
Well, you know what? We need to create a culture of people that don't give their attention, their sexual attention, just to the Jessica Rabbits or whatever.
That's not realistic. You got to be accepting of that. You got to be, because you guys look at men. You got, girl, he's bald headed. Look at him, he's 6'5".
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. Okay. There's women that look at bald headed men and be like, look at his bald head. I want to just rub it.
And if you see a man that's 5'6" with a wife, 5'6" with a wife that's 6'5", you're like, okay, what's going on here? Y'all look. Everybody look. It's okay to look. We have to get away from this, like, I need him to look at me. You're not God. You got to be on. God made all of us. So we're all here to look. And I think we have to get rid of that fear of that. Because here's why I say this is what I'm seeing now. This all comes together, right?
Mhm.
Men are scared to date women because they want to make sure that she's the one. But how do you know if you don't engage and understand the flaw is as a man, you're going to look. You're going to forget something. There's something called object permanence for men. If it's not in our face, we're going to forget. Men don't like to cheat because guess what? It requires us to remember. And guess what we can't do? Remember. So
Well, they've been
man with
not
a good memory, he's going to cheat. A man with a good memory, he's going to cheat. So watch out. So
Those be your family time. Oh my God, Stan, I can't with you. I really can't with you, Stan. You be
but we
doing.
got to look. Only reason I mention Sex and the City is because we have to look at that because we have gotten away from that place of actually meeting, for men meeting women, for women meeting men. And I think also the same thing for people in the same sex category too. They've gotten away from that as well. Nobody's meeting people.
Mm-hmm.
And it's making it really weird because like when somebody says hi to you, you don't even know if they're saying hi to you because they're trying to get your attention to rob you or that's also weird, right? Like, hey, how you doing? I'm gonna rob you now. Like that's weird. So we're in this weird place, right?
Yeah.
And you know, people going far away just to meet somebody. Well, suppose the person you're supposed to meet is right next door. And we've like, remember you used to have that thing of like, you got married to the guy next door, you got married to the girl next door. Like, what happened to that? We're gonna look at that too, because it used to be those things like your neighborhood boo.
Yeah. Well,
we've gotten away a lot of romantic stuff.
That's because we don't hang out in the neighborhood. Everybody hangs out in their house, online, or on a flight someplace. And like you said, like they don't come together. And that's the reality. When I was a teenager into my early 20s, I was outside hanging out with friends. I was at work hanging out with friends. Like it was a big deal. Yeah,
Disney has a show. I'm gonna send it to you. Disney has a show called Saturdays. It's really cool because the kids hang out at a skating rink.
Mm-hmm.
Remember those?
Yeah, I remember those.
Yeah, so my kid, she watched this. She's like, "Oh my God!" Like, yeah, we used to do this with our church youth group, like on a Tuesday night. It was like once a month. It was fun. Yeah, I come from strict Haitian parents, so good luck on trying to go out on your own. So we had and it was school church, so it ain't gonna happen outside of that. School, church, or family, like it's not gonna happen outside of that. So, but like it was good to do that with other kids. Not, for her generation, she's 10. Like they don't have that.
They don't. But that's why you have to force it in them now. With my son, I bought him a whole basketball court right out front. He got whole works. I send him out there and say, "Now you go out there and you make friends and practice." And he been meeting some neighborhood kids, but he a little skeptical because he one of those internet kids where he on the game so much, and so. And sometimes I punish him and his cousins, and when they get in my house, they be romping around on these hard floors and stuff, and I and then I gotta clean. Go outside. Since y'all want to get them, go outside. And then they be like, but it's outside. I be like, I don't care. They be like, you don't have steps. I don't care. Go outside, sit on the curb. But that's how I do them now. And see, people be like, well, Lola, you can't do that. That's almost like, like abuse. And just like James, I'll be like, what you talking about abuse? I take care of my kids.
It's abuse to keep them inside. Like, what's going to happen when you want them outside?
I'm just saying, like, it's the same. But listen. We're gonna definitely watch Sex and the City, and see what that's about, and just watch the interplay of those relationships. We will. There's a few other ones I'm gonna research too, but Sex and the City is a good one. So, yeah,
season 1. I want to start with season 1 because they did grow. I want a lot of people like, well, Sex and the City, there was a bunch of party animals. I'm like, no, because if you go to season 6, guess what happened to all 4 of them? They were all in a relationship.
Yeah.
So everybody like, well, Sex and the City, they were just about just sleeping with men. I'm like, well, that's how people knew each other. It's like you met
and you
had sex, and then hopefully it leads into a relationship. I mean, you were in your 20s or your 30s, like you in a major city, like that's what happens. But then if it don't, you move on to the next. Now, there was one good reality show that mind this woman, she had to stop doing the dating stuff. I don't remember Dating Millionaires. She was helping millionaires to date, but she always say like you date to mate. That was her slogan. You don't sleep with anybody that she sets up on a date. You date to mate. That was her slogan. You date to get married. But that was her thing. Like she wants you to date first, but you're a millionaire. She made sure people was like meeting up for the right purpose, but not for like only sex. But you know, like sex is part of it. But also she wanted people to be compatible, and hopefully the mating led to like, you know, they actually made it and got kids and got married. So, but she had to quit because people were getting married they only meet millionaires for the wrong thing. They just only wanted for the here and now, and that was it.
Well, see, that goes to the point that I always make, that sometimes when people when they date outside their financial range too much, money always corrupts people. It's not just in power dynamics, it's period. It's like, you know, if you're dating someone that's within your range, you see what I'm saying, versus someone that is taking you from middle class to upper echelon, like all the way up. Money clouds judgment all the time. And I don't think it extends at friendships and business and politics. It's in relationships too. When a guy gets a woman too that he doesn't deserve, and she just her alone puts him in a whole nother rank, and he's not on his level anymore. He's like totally way above his level. Usually it doesn't work out because he done went up too fast, and it's not on his level where he can handle it. I know for me, with what I make in my lifestyle, someone on my level, I'm not going to see them as something I can just reach my hand out for and say, hey, give me. I got to build with that person. Versus someone that might be a trillionaire. I'm not building with no trillionaire. Like, that ain't what that is. So unless like,
can I translate it for the people?
What's that?
What Lola is saying is look at Housewives of Atlanta season 1 to 3. Yeah. If you're gonna put it in terms of movies, yeah, that's what happens. That right there, that's what happens. Watch Atlanta Housewives season 1 to 3, and you'll see what she's talking about.
Yeah, you will.
And I think that's the whole thing. Like, if it's for elevation, there's a class for that, and they teach you things. But understand if you're going for somebody who's rich, nowadays people are getting smart. Rich people are calling people out. You're gonna be put on the budget. You will sign a prenup. That's it. You're not gonna not sign a prenup. Get over it. Because we're in the information age. It's a wrap now, and you're gonna have to have a job. I want to end with this one. There was a woman, Iyanla Fix My Life, and she did a good show. I gotta find it for you so you can see it. When there's a woman, she was married to one of Jackson's grandkids, and she thought that she wanted, because she was married to a Jackson, she wanted, all the money and all this stuff, but she doesn't want to work. Yeah. And Iyanla said, like, you have a high grand privilege. How dare you to be able-bodied and not work? But your kids don't need you. You don't need a maid. It's a high grand privilege.
That goes back to the idea of, let's say, the white culture versus black culture. When we try to practice white culture in our relationships, it doesn't work. Just don't work.
And then here's how, in this example, how that goes. Because then public opinion will look at you and like, why didn't you have a job?
That's true.
Like, why you was depending on him for his money?
Right. Yeah. When it's all stay at home.
Yeah. I was stay-at-home wife. All your kids in school. Why you didn't work between when they were in school? You ain't be home all the time, right? it's different. Like that's another segment we will cover later, but like it's very different. If you're a black man and you're a stay-at-home husband, they be like, really? You can work at McDonald's in the morning or in the afternoon, then pick up the kids? You know what I'm saying? Like it's a very no, seriously, they looking at you like, what? What's that? What you doing?
Yeah, I would too. I'm gonna be honest, I ain't even gonna cry. I would too. I'm like, so you sat there that entire time and did nothing, and now you're mad that you don't have any skills. Yeah, I'd get real bougie with this dude. Like, oh my god, you could have at least went to online school.
Oh, my friend, like I'll stay at home cleaning. I'm like, anybody who stays in the house, you clean your house in 2 hours.
Pretty
like I don't know what these TV maids were doing all day. But it definitely wasn't cleaning the house. Like
they were slow.
Clean the house. Yeah, I was wondering like what y'all was doing. Like I didn't clean the house for 8 hours every day.
Not for 8 hours every day. No.
But yeah, it's a standard.
But that's non-black television for you. That's what that is. Yeah. And honestly, if you even watch, like for instance, I Love Lucy, like yeah. You see how she was home all day. You see what she was doing while she was home.
Think about ways of ruining Ricky's life.
Yeah, basically. You know what? I'm gonna clip something from I Love Lucy to show that was the 50s, according to them. How stay-at-home wives was never meant to be stay-at-home.
Yeah, because it was weird. Like even when she had a kid, like she wanted to do something, but he didn't want her to do nothing.
He didn't want her to do nothing, but then again, when he came in, the first thing he's like, "Listen, you want to like," and it's like, "Listen to me, okay, Baba Luai. Like, just sit over there. Like, don't be doing it." But he did calm down. But see, when I watch him now, I just think about the fact that they were really married and he cheated. Like, you know, like, I don't know, like the fact that I know that now, it changes my perspective because I'm like,
no, yeah. Here's some people like, no, that's not true. Like, no, it's very true because the last episode of I Love Lucy, they were both sitting on opposite ends of that set. Mm-hmm. Now, mind you, they moved into the suburbs and they did a skit that was very telling of what was going on. Well, Lucy had to work. I think she became a weather girl or whatever with a TV station. And she had to take the train to the city, back to the city because they moved to the country.
Right.
And then she missed little Ricky because, she had to, she was working. That's what she wanted. She wanted to work. And Ricky like became a stay-at-home dad and she didn't like it and she went back, right? But then the last show where they both set apart from each other, and that's when you find out like they were going through divorce because he was always cheating. And that was something people don't understand. Like, we talk about women hypergamy because I was wondering like when we ever going to talk about the opposite for men. Like, what's the opposite of hypergamy? And that's for men is, I forgot what the word it is, but men are just meant to sleep with everything. And then
they were meant. I know what you're talking about though, because it was I seen a documentary about that, and it was very sad. And it's so much we're gonna cover, but you know what? Let's not give them too much tonight because it's so much I'm gonna send you. And when we get on here, it's gonna be on like popcorn, okay? And actually, I don't even have popcorn with me right now. I'm gonna get me my favorite popcorn, and I'm be throwing it back while we talking. And watch.
Do you get yours pre-made or do you pop them yourself?
Well, it's one that I get from Wise. That's pre-made, and oh my god, its popcorn is so good. It's better than the movies popcorn. I'm telling you, I don't put nothing on it, and it's like thebombshow.com. Like I swear by this popcorn, okay? But I'm gonna get it, and I'm gonna show it to you too. It's
all
like
right.
It comes in a real big bag, like a real big bag.
Yeah, I get mine. I always get the one with the cheddar in it.
Cheddar.
That's the ones I like. Yeah, cheddar popcorn. Yeah.
Okay, you might as well put Old Bay on it or something.
No. I like mine with cheddar in it. I just, I like my popcorn a little flavor in it.
What you think Old Bay is? That's flavor.
Old Bay is seasoning.
That's where the flavor come from.
That's seasoning. That's the black side of my family. The white side of my family be like, you know what? Cheddar is enough seasoning for us. Like sometimes I catch myself making a mayo sandwich. I'm like, oh, the white grandfather's showing up today, huh?
Listen, that only happens with me when it comes to music, okay? My father's side of my mother's father's side of the family comes out of me, like sometimes. Well, only on music though. Like, and I only listen to it when I'm by myself.
Y'all find myself eating something bland. I'm like, oh, the white side of the family showing up today, huh? Y'all don't mind it. I think this is good cooking, huh? Now, you see, mixed people, this is how you're supposed to do it. Acknowledge both sides.
Yeah, wait a minute. Did you just say Mexican people?
I said mixed people. Acknowledge both sides.
Okay, acknowledge both sides. Yeah, like my white side.
Not negative. Just acknowledge it.
not in a bad way too, because white people can cook too. They just can't cook the same things. But they can cook. No. They can do some bakery.
Oh yeah. My white side, I'll be cooking some shepherd pie. People are like, where'd you got that from? I'm like, white side of the family coming up. Sometimes I need my white food.
I don't know about cheddar, but I will try it. Since you said something. I'll try the cheddar on the popcorn because I think it comes in a bag too. But I want it like real. But
I'll get mine from Trader Joe's.
Trader Joe's. I got a Trader Joe's around here. I can go try it. I can. Well,
run away from the JoJo's. Those are dangerous.
Stop it. Stop it.
No, because they put me of Oreo cookies. And it's actually hazelnut and vanilla bean frosting and hazelnut cookies. And you'll finish a whole box. Every time I get somebody on it, they hate me afterwards. Like, oh my God, finish the whole box. I told you, watch out for the JoJo's.
Well, you know what? I'm going to get me, I'm going to make it a real movies night because today was my first live. So it's always technical difficulty. But my next one, I'm gonna make it a movie night, and we're gonna keep that up. But wait a minute, are you bringing cheddar?
I'm not bringing cheddar. We'll talk about what we're gonna bring so we can show everybody, with the hopes of getting public donations and and sponsorships.
Well, you know what? We're gonna put our cash apps on there. We might do a little activity to see who can raise the most money for our snacks.
Well, actually, I don't want no cash app because I want the government finding my funding. But y'all can send me cash.
When'd you cash? Ain't no sending cash.
Cash app be reporting stuff.
Listen, I can't with you, Stan. I will. Okay, I will. All right. So, let's get out of here, and we're gonna be back.
That's why I was like, I can't withstand. Guess what?
That's why I can't. Cause see, you talking about sending cash. That's illegal, Stan.
That is?
Yes, it's illegal to send cash.
Oh, I got PO box and everything. I thought it was legal.
No, it's not legal. You a mess.
If they can put it in the shoes, I wear size 15. Stacey Adams, size 14. Just put it inside the shoes.
Let's stick them to the top. Stick them down. But how you gonna do it out? Never mind. Okay. All right, Stan. Let's get out of here. We're gonna wrap up. But I appreciate you, Stan. We're gonna check this out next time, and I'll let everybody know because I'll probably cut this up and throw it online. But we'll get our food together and have a similar night, next time. All right.
All right, everybody.
Good night, everybody. We will see you guys next time.
Bye.